Chapter 321. Liao Qi made her breakthrough, and on the same day Liao Ya also stepped into the blood exchange realm. Seeing this, Liu Yao generously passed on the precious innate true qi to the two women to help them stabilize their realms. After a week of cultivation, Liu Yao gathered everyone and said, "Our realms have all stabilized, it's time to test them with our bodies." The ladies didn't object. One must try things personally to understand them, and a martial artist should know their own body like the back of their hand. Next, the whole family gathered at the training ground and took out various firearms for testing. They had done this once before, so it was now routine. The two sisters went first, experiencing the ordeal and ending up riddled with holes, gaining a profound understanding of the physical strength provided by the blood exchange mirror. Then it was Liu Yao's turn. As an innate grandmaster, he started with an AK. Liao Qi picked up an AK rifle, chambered around, and shouted, "I'm going to shoot you now." Then, she pulled the trigger, and amidst the roaring, flames burst from the muzzle as 7.62 bullets screamed out. The bullets sparked as they hit Liu Yao, either being deflected or shattered by the powerful kinetic energy. On Liu Yao's body were only some insignificant scratches, which were quickly disappearing before their very eyes. The onlookers weren't surprised. An innate grandmaster was expected to have such physical robustness. Liao Qi put down the AK, picked up a .50 caliber machine gun, and cocked it, her face wearing a ferocious, yet playful, expression. Li Pei laughed on the side. "Lately, Liao Qi is filled with resentment. It's all your fault, always monopolizing your brother-in-law." Liao Ya's face turned red. Liu Yao was always hanging around her and she couldn't help it, nor could she bring herself to refuse him. As they spoke, Liao Qi already pressed the trigger and fired. Before, firing the .50 caliber against those in the innate realm had a general effect, now it was the same with Liu Yao. The powerful .50 caliber bullets could only penetrate the epidermis, bound to be caught by the muscle or deflected. Even a well-angled shot couldn't reach the bones but could make him step back continuously. .50 caliber machine gun is also useless. The defensive strength of my body now can be compared to an armored vehicle. Protein is a miraculous thing, its composition, the structure of peptide arrangement, all make for vastly different strengths. Liu Yao flexed his hand, making his muscles bulge, and a metallic wrenching and twisting creak sound could be heard. His special protein genetic makeup made his muscles and epidermis similar to Kevlar fibers, possessing an unbelievably tough resilience. As for his bone strength, it had long surpassed normal steel, with only specialty alloys being somewhat comparable. Moreover, he showed great resistance to acids, alkalines, and high temperatures. At this moment, Liu Yao placed his hand over a kerosene stove to roast, and only the skin blackened a bit, easily wiped clean and shiny as new. Exceptional heat and flame resistance. I can pretty much disregard temperatures below 500 degrees Celsius. Next, Liu Yao pulled out a high explosive grenade, pulled the pin, and tossed it into the air. When it fell back down, it exploded just as it reached his chest. With a boom and a flash, a cloud of smoke rose, engulfing Liu Yao. The ladies simply covered their ears, not really concerned. As expected, after a few seconds, the dust settled, and an unscathed Liu Yao appeared, only blackened by the explosion, which he simply wiped off, leaving him bright and clean as before. Light weapons were now completely ineffective. He called out to Liao Qi, "Try the heavy weapons." Liao Qi hesitated somewhat. Suddenly I feel it's not appropriate. The power is too great, let's not do it." Liu Yao braced himself in a horse stance, ready to receive the impact as he confidently said, "It's fine. Bring it on." Liao Qi aimed the fire god cannon, loaded a cannonball, and said solemnly, "Be careful, I'm aiming at your left arm." 3 seconds later, after confirming her beloved was ready, the young woman resolutely pulled the trigger. Amidst the roar, a 20mm cannonball whistled out of the barrel, hitting Liu Yao's arm with precision. He took a sudden step back to absorb the massive force. A charred and gaping hole the size of a teacup appeared on his arm, exposing the bone clearly. The 3 young women rushed over to check on him. Liu Yao shook his arm, his muscles began to wriggle quickly, shedding the necrotic part automatically, then forcibly closing the wound and accelerating the healing. Even at the innate realm, such strong self-healing ability was unheard of. This was a qualitative change brought about by the simultaneous cultivation of Dragon Elephant Prujna skill and Dragon Roar Golden Bell Shield, which drastically improved his physique. Seeing their man unharmed, the three women breathed a sigh of relief. They had used a machine gun to take down more than one innate expert and knew full well the might of this weapon. Liu Yao then said, "Shoot me again." "Again? I want to test the effect of innate true qi." Liao Qi, knowing she couldn't dissuade him, simply loaded another cannonball and yelled, "This time it's the right arm. Your next read awaits at Empire." After waiting another 3 seconds to fire, but this time it was different. Liu Yao concentrated innate true qi in his arm. His body, already extraordinarily tough, exhibited incredible mechanical properties under the enhancement of this miraculous energy. The cannonball hit his arm precisely, but instead of penetrating, it made a clang of harsh metallic resonance. Then the cannonball exploded into a burst of sparks and fragments, while Liu Yao's right arm showed countless fine cracks like porcelain. With the physique of an innate grandmaster, this could scarcely be considered an injury. The cracks slowly disappeared, visible to the naked eye, and would heal within minutes. Liu Yao was invigorated, marveling at the miraculous effects of innate true qi. "I only knew innate true qi could turn ordinary iron into divine weapons, but I never imagined it would be so effective when enhancing my own body. The consumption is quite substantial, though, that hit used up nearly 1/3 of my true qi. But I just reached the innate realm after all." The three young women also pinched and examined Liu Yao's body. As blood exchange mirror cultivators, they found referencing the body of an innate expert to be very beneficial. By then, the test was considered complete. Liu Yao struck a bodybuilder's pose and said proudly, "Take your time admiring it. Feel free to appreciate me anytime. Such a show-off. Shameless." The three women teased their man while examining him. After a bit of laughing and joking, Li Pei glanced at the sky and said, "I'm going to the telegraph office. I've sent several telegrams to Master, but she hasn't replied. I'm worried it's been a wasted trip." Liu Yao had already advanced to the innate realm on his own, so he didn't need Yu Yanmei to rush back. But since there was still no news from her, Li Pei grew worried and made daily trips to the telegraph office to check. Before they knew it, it was June, and the weather had turned hot. Liu Yao practiced daily with the aid of his senior sister's orchid fragrance, and was exceedingly happy. Stimulated by the aroma, his bodily functions operated at high speed, making cultivation doubly effective. The orchid fragrance would only unconsciously emanate from Liaoya when she was deeply moved. If she perspired heavily during normal days, a hint could be detected, but the scent was too faint to have that miraculous effect. It was merely fragrant. Liu Yao's innate true qi had grown slightly, and he had mastered the innate realms Tathagata divine palm, Buddha shakes mountains and rivers. However, Yu Yanmei's continued silence inevitably caused concern. Until this day, when the trusted eunuch Zhang Jin personally delivered a telegram, bringing bad news. Grandmaster Yu had suffered a serious injury while attempting to rescue allies, ambushed by the notorious white-eyed tiger. Chapter 322. Daihua City. The message arrived, and everyone immediately gathered to discuss it. Li Pei quickly summarized the situation. After the Rakshasa launched their attack, the western frontier became deadlocked. Currently, General Zhou and the Vampire Duke are in a standoff in the Yili region and cannot easily extricate themselves. Yu Yanmei took over the heavy responsibility of commanding the forces, confronting Agubai's bandits in a stalemate near Turpan. Among the enemy's leaders is an innate realm giant bandit. The white-eyed tiger. This man is sinister and vicious, extremely skilled in ambushes. It was his cunning plan that seriously injured Yu Yanmei. Separated by over 3,000 kilometers, it was inconvenient to communicate the details, and this was all they knew thus far. But there was no need for further details. Liu Yao waved his hand decisively and said, "We set off at once. With the spiritual sparrowhawks, we only need 1 day to reach the western frontier, and we will certainly make those bastards pay." Find more chapters on Empire. Li Pei, worried about her master's safety and somewhat beside herself, immediately felt relieved at his response. In a soft voice, she asked, "My lord, do we need to bring anything else?" Liu Yao replied, "Just pack simple personal items, nothing else matters." The three women understood, their man was clearly planning to use the magical mustard seed treasure. But what they didn't know was that the contents of the space-time bubble were beyond imagination. It didn't just contain planes, tanks, and cannon. It even had an entire supermarket. And the energy of the star key was fully charged up. Yu Yanmei had helped everyone a great deal and was an absolute insider, as well as Li Pei's master. Upon hearing she was in trouble, the family's fighting spirit soared, and they quickly assembled in the yard. 3 spiritual sparrowhawks dived down like lightning, deftly alighting beside them. Their feathers, sharp beaks, and talons glinted with a metallic chill in the sunlight, their stature now nearly 2 meters tall. This time they had to carry 4 people across more than 3,000 kilometers. Even with wingsuit flight suits, it was a substantial burden for the spiritual sparrowhawks. Liu Yao swallowed 610 complete immortal pills and extended his hand to pass on innate true qi to nourish them. The spiritual sparrowhawks particularly loved this high-level life energy, and the benefits were truly immense. They excitedly raised each feather, calling repeatedly, their bodies filled with vigor. Ru Yi, the strongest, took both Liaoya and Liao Qi simultaneously, Ji Xiang carried Li Pei, and Ping'an took Liu Yao. Their powerful wings flapped vigorously, and amidst their high-pitched calls, they stirred up a strong current of air. Gripping their passengers, the spiritual sparrowhawks ascended and flew towards the northwest. At this time in Korla, western frontier, within a palace topped with onion domes, a Gubai convened his officers for a meeting. He was not one of the Shunchao people, but an Uzbek, thus he had high cheekbones and deep-set eyes, the appearance of a foreigner. A Gubai was particularly sensitive about his background as a dancing boy, and so he wore a full, aggressive beard to appear more masculine. Now, everyone waited for a Gubai to speak, but he was lost in thought, stroking his spirit pet. This was a short-haired mastiff, 5 meters long. The beast was so big it resembled a truck, making the already vast palace feel cramped. It was a rare blood exchange realm spirit pet. Laying on the ground, it gnawed on the corpse of an innate realm being, crunching sounds echoing clearly. The body was that of the former lord of the palace, a local king of the western frontier. After a while, once the spirit pet had completely devoured the body and began to lick its paws, a Gubai spoke with authority. The vampire duke has ordered us to attack Daihua to create an opportunity to kill Zojikan. Mobilize all the troops and enlist the commoners as cannon fodder. We launch the assault in 3 days. Upon hearing these words, a very burly young man stepped forward and knelt, saying, "Father, I wish to serve as the vanguard and shatter the enemy for you." This was a Gubai's son, Hagula. His body was covered in thick hair, his yellow pupils were like wolf's eyes, and his mouth sported 2 prominent canine teeth. After letting out a howl akin to that of a wolf, he said excitedly, "That female swordsman has been seriously injured, and no one can stop us now. We'll tear Daihua city apart, and countless treasures, beauties, and slaves will be ours to enjoy." The other generals in the hall agreed with these words, letting out howls like wolves, which echoed throughout the entire palace and frightened the maids to the point of shivering. These were the werewolves from the other world. In front of the werewolf generals, plates held rows of human legs and arms. Compared to vampires, they preferred the taste of living human flesh and bone. After listening to his son's request, a Gubai agreed. "Go then, pave the way for the army as the vanguard. However, I must find you a good teacher and friend to tame your wild nature." A Gubai turned to look at the only normal person present, and said, "Brother White-Eyed Tiger, it was thanks to your wisdom that we were able to severely injure that detestable female swordsman. Now, would you accompany my son once more?" This person had the appearance of an Asian, quite conspicuous among the foreigners. His forehead was narrow, and he had a pair of triangle-shaped eyes. Those with such features are often narrow-minded, suspicious, and cruel. White-Eyed Tiger, with a hand on his chest, replied calmly, "Honored by the Great Khan's trust, I will accompany the prince." A Gubai nodded in satisfaction. With one being brave and the other cunning, it seemed like a foolproof plan. However, the werewolf generals looked down on White-Eyed Tiger, snorting in disdain. White-Eyed Tiger had been a scourge in Qingzhou for many years, a brutal and bloodthirsty killer who often massacred the young and old, and enjoyed disturbing graves. From nobles to commoners, he would dig up anyone's ancestral graves to see if there were any valuables hidden within. Such actions, as expected, incited great public outrage and led to him being collectively attacked. After a difficult escape to the western frontier, he took refuge with a Gubai, willingly serving as a lackey and even disguising himself as a foreigner. A Gubai's bandits were, after all, foreign invaders, and White-Eyed Tiger's actions were undoubtedly that of a traitor to his country. A scoundrel of his kind would be despised wherever he went. Liu Yao and his family, after a 15-hour flight, finally arrived at Daihua City. The beautiful city at the foot of the Tian Shan Mountains was the base camp for the Western Expedition Army, where Yu Yanmei resided. The family proceeded on foot after landing. When they were still 2 miles from the city walls, the city guard shouted, "Who goes there?" The guard was only at Blood Exchange Realm, his voice sounding weak as a mosquito. Liu Yao, mustering his innate true qi, called out loudly, "Yunzhou Liu Yao, here to visit an old friend." His shout was like thunder, audible throughout a good part of Daihua City. Such a display clearly signaled to anyone with the slightest common sense that the visitor was none other than an innate Grand Master. After a short wait, the city gates opened. Zhou Xiaoyi, whom they had met previously during a fundraising event, came out to greet them, looking unmistakably haggard and tired but with joy on his face. "Lu. Grand Master Lu. You've ascended to innate." Liu Yao greeted him with a fist salute, merely a fortunate breakthrough. "We've come rushing here upon hearing of Grand Master Yu's injury. How is she now?" Zhou Xiaoyi, of course, knew the relationships between these individuals and quickly led them inside. "Grand Master Yu's life is not in danger, though her meridians are damaged and require some time to recover. However, I worry the thieves might take the opportunity to scheme." Chapter 323. Cannon shooting at planes. Zhou Xiaoyi led everyone into a mansion. A woman with a pale face greeted them at the front door with a smile. It was Yu Yanmei. Due to her serious injuries, she looked less sharp and more delicate. Li Pei hurriedly rushed over to carefully examine his master all over, complaining, "You were told not to come, but you just wouldn't listen." Yu Yanmei, standing over 1.8 meters tall, slightly taller than Li Pei, gently stroked her disciple's head and said, "I'm in the flesh realm, a small injury like this is no problem, I'll recover in a few days." Zhou Xiaoyi sighed with admiration, "Grand Master Yu is truly a heroine among women." The bandit leader, the white-eyed tiger, has lost his mind and wants to dig up the capital river to launch a water attack. Downstream, there's not only us but also countless civilians, such an action would undoubtedly lead to catastrophe. Luckily, Grand Master Yu risked her life to stop it, but she herself fell into an encirclement and suffered severe injuries. Only then did Liu Yao and the others understand why Yu Yanmei was injured. Zhou Xiaoyi reminded them, "For martial artists, it's best not to suffer severe injuries, otherwise it could damage the foundation. My father's golden body was breached by powerful enemies twice, which led to a great reduction in his lifespan. Some injuries might seem healed to the naked eye, but they actually reach deep inside." The group chatted casually for a few moments. Zhou Xiaoyi kept glancing at Liu Yao, obviously wanting to say something, but in the end, he didn't and politely excused himself and left. After he left, Li Pei said, "It seems the war is going badly. Young Master Zhou clearly wanted to ask for your help, but since we have already donated 10,000 taels of silver, and considering the shallowness of our relationship, he could not bring himself to say it." Yu Yanmei sighed, "Young Master Zhou is entangled with demon beasts, and the situation of strength has turned. Currently, in the army, only the commander Lu Hintang is left at the innate. Among the bandits, a goodbye is at the leakless stage, and he has his son and the white-eyed tiger, both innates." This was far from just bad, it was outright dire. No wonder the government forces dare not leave the city. Upon arrival, they had noticed the government forces hunkered down inside the city, wearing an undeniable look of panic on their faces. In the wars of Otherworld, not only was military strength a factor, but the role of experts was also crucial. With such a disparity, it meant that the disadvantaged side couldn't even leave their gates, as they would be attacked immediately upon doing so. Furthermore, once a battle started, it would be difficult to secure one's own important facilities like the cannon emplacements. At this point, Yu Yanmei examined Liu Yao from top to bottom and praised, "Liu Ziazi, a prodigy graced by heaven, has advanced to the innate realm. This truly calls for congratulations." Li Pei laughed in agreement, "Hearing you were in trouble, my lord immediately brought us here." Liu Yao bowed, "Previously, Grand Master Yu took care of me, so this time I will certainly eliminate the bandits to avenge you." Yu Yanmei shook her head, "Eliminate the bandits? That's quite the bold statement, given that a goodbye is at the leakless stage. However, with your ability, you should be able to take down that white-eyed tiger. The man is cruel and cunning, and utterly unscrupulous in allying with foreign demon beasts. He must be killed if the opportunity arises." Just as Liu Yao nodded in agreement, the sharp sound of a manually operated alarm suddenly rang out from the city. "The thieves must be attacking, taking advantage of my injury." Yu Yanmei slung the Longchuan sword on her back, "Let's hurry to Commander Liu's residence." Li Pei had just hugged his master and knew how weak she was at the moment. Let my lord go alone, you should rest properly. Yu Yanmei shook her head, I must make an appearance, otherwise, the troops will lose heart. Yu Yanmei took a deep breath, her face calm and her steps steady as she led Liu Yao and the others to the military council. Along the way, they encountered many soldiers in a panic, who immediately stood at attention and saluted as soon as they saw her coming, their expressions less frantic. The group arrived at Commander Lu Hintang's residence of the Western Expedition Army. Countless military officers were waiting there, and upon seeing Liu Yao, they all stood up to greet him. Commander Lu Hintang saluted, I have long admired the great name of Grandmaster Liu. Today's matters are urgent, please forgive this officer's neglect. Commander Lu need not worry about me, the important matters come first, Liu Yao said and then stood behind Yu Yanmei. Lu Hintang nodded in thanks, then relayed a piece of news. A Gubai bandits had risen up in full force, with 50,000 troops, and they had also coerced 30,000 civilians, marching towards Daihua city. The faces of those present turned grim. At this moment, the Daihua garrison only numbered 30,000, which was not too deficient. But the disparity in high-end combat power was indeed drastic. Once the battle commenced, an unconstrained innate grandmaster could charge into the city and cause tremendous destruction. At this point, everyone turned to look towards Liu Yao. Lu Hintang bowed deeply, saying solemnly, I earnestly request young Master Lu's assistance to help this official defend the city. Should Daihua fall, it would surely affect Master Zhou, leading to a chain reaction. Liu Yao responded seriously, since I have come, there is no reason for me to stand by and watch. Read exclusive adventures at Empire. Upon hearing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Hintang was especially grateful. Thank goodness Liu Yao had arrived, otherwise, this battle would have been unwinnable. The generals continued to discuss the details of the city's defense. Just then, the loud humming of aircraft engines came from the sky. Even those with the lowest cultivation level among the people present were at the organ refining stage, and their senses were far keener than ordinary people, so they immediately looked up. At an altitude of 4 kilometers, a twin-propeller biplane was heading straight for Daihua city. This aircraft was extremely large, with a length of 17 meters and a wingspan of 40 meters. It was none other than the Rakshasa's Ilya Muromets bomber. Fug! The Rakshasa's planes are here again. Quick, bring the cannon over. This old bomber clearly had malicious intentions, seeking to strike at the morale of the defenders. But at this time, it was also quite difficult for those inside Daihua city to deal with this contraption flying at an altitude of 4 kilometers. Countless soldiers, unsure what to do, were holding guns, while others pushed over a Jihad Krupp 88mm cannon. A spirit refining expert who had entered a meditative state fired 2 shots. However, his cultivation level was too low, and the difficulty was even greater due to shooting from a lower position to a higher one. The cannonballs didn't even come close to the plane. The next second, the bomber dropped an 800 kilograms bomb. This thing could level a city block. The bomb produced a piercing whistle as it fell, causing countless people to scream in panic and scatter in all directions. It would take about 13 seconds for the bomb to hit the ground, which was enough time for Liu Yao. He walked up to the 88mm cannon, made a slight adjustment to the barrel, and pressed the firing mechanism, firing with great force. A cannonball whistled out of the barrel and hit the mid-air bomb precisely. With a thunderous boom, a burst of fire and smoke restored peace to the sky. Liu Yao pulled open the breech block, ejecting an arm-sized shell casing before loading a new one, then aiming at the bomber. The pilot was a clever one. As soon as he saw the bomb being blasted in mid-air, he immediately realized there was a spirit refining expert in the city and quickly controlled the aircraft to escape in an irregular trajectory. Liu Yao adjusted the barrel calmly and unhurriedly. At this moment, 2 Blood Exchange Realm generals came over and lifted the 88mm cannon onto their shoulders, shouting, Grandmaster Liu, we'll bear the cannon for you. Shoot it down. With someone shouldering and adjusting the barrel, it was much more convenient for Liu Yao. He nodded in thanks to them and then entered the spirit refining state. Wind speed, humidity, the speeds and movement trajectories of both friend and foe, he had everything under control. With a huge bang, a massive blaze burst from the mouth of the cannon as the cannonball roared out, and the initial velocity of 760 meters per second easily caught up to the aircraft. In the eyes of outsiders, it seemed as though the bomber was catching the cannonball itself. The cannonball pierced through it, creating a large hole and continued to fly. The bomber, having suffered such damage, lost its ability to fly and, emitting black smoke, spiraled down, exploding violently upon impact with the ground, with flames and thick smoke filling the sky. Cheers erupted from around, and the people suddenly remembered. This Lu sect Grand Master was also a spirit refinement of divine fetal breathing expert. Chapter 324. Gunboat Aircraft Takeoff. Werewolves possess an extremely impressive capacity for war mobilization. The day Agubai issued his orders, an army of 50,000 had already struck out. At this moment, Agubai's son, Hagula, was coercing the civilians of the western frontier. Moreover, he wasn't getting his hands dirty. An accompanying white-eyed tiger was very compliant, willingly taking on this troublesome task, and doing it quite well. In a small village, the subordinates of white-eyed tiger skillfully set fire to the houses. The fires weren't too large or too small, just right, as billowing smoke poured out. Before long, the villagers were choked out of hiding places like cellars. The bandits tied them up in a line with ropes. Those who cried and wailed, reluctant to move, were summarily shot dead by white-eyed tiger and his subordinates. The way was lit by flames reaching for the sky, filled with cries and wailing. Hagula greatly enjoyed this atmosphere. Destruction and carnage brought him true pleasure from deep within his heart. He pulled a simple woman's shoe from his embrace and took a deep sniff, intoxicated as he said, "Ah, the fragrance of a virgin, I have memorized this scent well. She'll never escape again." Werewolves have an outstanding sense of smell, and prey whose scent they remember are hardly able to escape. White-eyed tiger laughed, "Who would have thought your highness took a fancy to that female swordsman? She is a renowned icy beauty in the Jingjian area, always aloof and unapproachable." Hagula put the shoe back into his embrace, his wolf-like pupils filled with cruelty. "It's her flesh and blood I'm after. Once I've eaten her, I am sure to gain even greater power." Just like vampires delight in toying with fresh blood, werewolves too have their own unique craving for living flesh. Demons creatures do this not just for the sake of satisfying their hunger, but because it grants them tangible benefits. But white-eyed tiger then threw a damper on things. "As far as I know, the Khan has also taken an interest in this woman." Hagula's canines protruded, and his nails grew 3 inches longer. His dissatisfaction with his father's greed was evident. It was then that white-eyed tiger added, "Your highness, must you consume her whole?" "No, that won't be necessary. You could keep the legs for your own enjoyment and present the rest to the Khan. That way, things needn't become too tense." Hagula was still unwilling, yet he didn't dare defy his father, his expression filled with resentful annoyance. At this time, Daihua city was no longer far away. Hagula let out a long howl toward the heavens, which was immediately answered by countless wolf howls. The army drove the captured civilians ahead, preparing to drive the populace to attack the city. This tactic not only aims to shatter the morale of the city's defenders but also to deplete their weapons and ammunition, a trick commonly employed by them. But just then, Hagula's furry ears swiftly perked up, and he sharply looked up into the sky. "Is that our airplane?" Meanwhile, in Daihua city, Agubai's army would arrive the next day, and the Western Expedition Army was mobilizing to prepare the city's defenses. From time to time, military soldiers shouting cadences ran through the streets, the atmosphere fraught with a bleak chill. Liu Yao told Yu Yanmei, "I'm going to test the enemy's weight," then he left the city with the 3 girls. "Wait for me to stabilize the airplane, then you guys come up on the spiritual sparrowhawk." After instructing them, Liu Yao took to the skies with Pingan, soaring to an altitude of 10,000 meters. He arrived above the clouds, opened the space-time bubble, and brought out the AC-130 gunship. The 70-ton behemoth appeared, and before it even had the chance to plummet, Liu Yao had already executed a spiritual cat stance, clinging tightly to it. He opened the cargo door, entered the airplane, sprinted to the cockpit, and started the engine in one fluid action, unfazed by the imbalance in air pressure and inertia. The instrument panel spun wildly, alarms blared, and the airplane sliced through the air with a piercing screech, oriented nose downward toward the ground. With just 2 kilometers to go before impact, the 4 propellers whirled rapidly to provide the power to ascend. Liu Yao gave the control stick a fierce pull, and the 30-meter-long, 40-meter wingspan steel giant abruptly pitched up, soaring back into the sky. The 3 girls watched with bated breath and finally let out a sigh of relief. Continue reading on Empire. Hastily, she had the spiritual sparrowhawk grab her and ascend to chase after the gunboat, entering it using the same method as Liu Yao. "Wow, it's so big. Yeah, it's much bigger than the last few. The girls looked around and touched things, full of curiosity. Liu Yao pointed out the 40mm automatic cannons and the 105mm howitzers to them, instructing them to familiarize themselves with the operations. The family, all practicing in the spirit refinement firmness, quickly learned under the guidance of Liu Yao. At this moment, 3 spiritual sparrowhawks were flying around nearby. Liu Yao suddenly noticed something strange. Their images weren't showing up on radar. Given their current size, they should have been identified as drones or missiles. But neither the fire control radar nor the panoramic radar on the gunboat had detected them. Only through the low-light television camera system could the spiritual sparrowhawks' agile figures be seen. Liu Yao thought of his precious one's magnificent, mysterious feathers and had an inkling. The feathers might absorb radar waves. By that time, the gunboat's fire control radar had already spotted the enemy on the ground. Liu Yao cast aside all distractions, entering a state of minute consciousness control, merging as one with the aircraft. Hagula and White-Eyed Tiger subconsciously assumed that the aircraft in the sky must be friendly. But they soon felt that something was off. The next second, a terrifying red rain plummeted from the sky. The 20mm autocannon shells burst forth with intense heat, displaying a bright orange glow in the air. The firing rate of 6,000 rounds per minute formed a continuous line of fire, and 4 guns firing together turned into a downpour of destruction. Countless marching soldiers were abruptly torn apart and smeared across the ground. A werewolf centurion, the equivalent of an organ refining warrior, took a hit, a basketball-sized hole appearing in the chest of the creature, with colorful viscera oozing out. Werewolves are known for their exceptional regenerative abilities, but with injuries like that, it ultimately couldn't survive. The werewolf centurion let out a painful howl typical of a wounded canine, struggled a few times, and died. The military formation instantly descended into chaos. Some soldiers dropped to the ground, others sought cover, but all such actions were futile under the surveillance of the aircraft above. The cannons fired relentlessly, wherever the terrifying line of fire pointed, everything burst asunder, mixing blood and soil. The scene was filled with moans, screams. Damn it! Those are Shun country's planes. How could they possibly have such advanced aircraft? Where are the guns? Bring out the cannons and fire! Hagula and White-Eyed Tiger ran toward the artillery position, wanting to fight back. The gunboat flying at an altitude of 3,000 meters could, in theory, be taken down with guns. The artillery commander with a green headband had prepared, mounting 2 107mm cannons. He himself picked up a 25mm autocannon. But before he could take aim, a familiar shrieking sound suddenly pierced the air. The distinctive sound of a cannonball breaking the sound barrier. It was the gunboat's 105mm howitzer firing. A thunderous explosion followed, the shockwave instantly turned 20 artillery operators nearby into chunks, throwing countless bits of soil and artillery parts into the sky. Various debris fell swiftly, and before they had a chance to catch their breath, another howitzer shell struck. After the deafening explosion, a 2-meter-wide crater was left on the ground, and within a 15-meter radius, the enemy was again reduced to pieces flying through the air, with those in higher martial Dao realms having more intact corpses. The artillery commander, a warrior of the marrow-cleansing realm, was blown away by the shockwave but not yet dead. However, in the next second, his upper body abruptly disappeared, turning into a spray of blood that covered White-Eyed Tiger's face. The gunboat's 40mm cannon had opened fire. In the span of 3 minutes, the gunboat circled the area, with machine guns, automatic cannons and howitzers all firing at once, cleansing the ground of anything that moved. The whistle of shells, the roar of explosions, panicked cries and death agonies merged into one, as various fragments were thrown back into the air by new shockwaves before they had time to fall. The vanguard, composed of 10,000 soldiers, turned into nutrients for the land within 3 minutes. Chapter 325. Aerial Bomb. At that moment, only Hagula and the White-Eyed Tiger, both innate level powerhouses, were still alive on the entire battlefield. The two of them were covered in injuries, their bodies riddled with craters of varying sizes, as they desperately fled toward the rear where a goodbye was located. The White-Eyed Tiger had lost his left arm and was running awkwardly in the lead. Hagula was not far behind him. The werewolf was missing half of his face, and he had almost been bisected by a 40mm autocannon. He was frantically stuffing his colorful organs back into his abdomen. Despite sustaining such injuries, Hagula was not only alive but capable of movement, and his body was slowly healing, demonstrating incredible vitality. Liu Yao was piloting the airplane at a leisurely pace behind the two fleeing curs, ready to have some fun with the enemy's main forces. Only 1/5 of the gunboat's ammo and less than 1/20th of its fuel had been used. However, taking it out of the space-time bubble had consumed 40% of its energy, so of course he had to make this trip count. The three girls were reloading the weapons, ensuring that they could lay down fire at any moment, and then they began to study the GBU aerial bombs on board. These things were nearly the same length as a person and weighed over 200 kilograms. They were stacked in many layers. After satisfying their curiosity, Liao Qi stretched and wandered into the cockpit, plopping down in the co-pilot's seat and saying, "I want to learn to fly a plane." Liu Yao had no objections. "All right, I'll teach you, watch closely." The girl entered the spirit refining state and blissfully began to learn from her beloved. Meanwhile, 3 spiritual sparrowhawks leisurely landed on the battlefield, pecking at the corpses of werewolf officers and gulping down the red blood cores they unearthed. Unlike vampires, werewolves did not turn to dust after death and also possessed similar crystalline blood cores, which the sparrowhawks now took advantage of. It seemed the blood cores were quite suitable for them. After eating a few, their feathers shone even more brightly. Pity there were not many werewolf officers, and the 3 sparrowhawks soon finished their meal, flying off with a sense of lingering desire behind their master. They eagerly awaited their master to once again unleash his wrathful slaughter upon the enemy, so they could indulge in the feast to their heart's content. Hagula and the white-eyed tiger ran as if their lives depended on it and managed to reach a goodbye in just half an hour. At that time, a 50,000-strong army was marching in the direction of Daihua City. An endless caravan of camels and trucks mixed together, the demonic cries of camels and the roaring of engines overlapping in waves. The master of the army, a goodbye, was seated on an enormous palanquin borne by 200 slaves. Experience tales at my virtual library empire. The palanquin was draped with light, sheer curtains that fluttered gently in the breeze. There were also 4 beautiful serving girls, but their makeup was ruined with tears. They were human flesh, ready to be consumed by the Khan at any moment. A goodbye lounged on the palanquin, casting a glance at his army. A rabble fueled by plunder and lust, a castle made of sand, vulnerable to collapse at the first sign of a formidable enemy. A goodbye was well aware of this fact, but he did not rely on these riffraff. The officers of the army, the werewolf centurions, were the real core. As long as he had them, he could raise countless armies like this one at any time. A goodbye glanced at the sky, noting that by now his son must have prepared to employ the civilians in the attack on the city. Once his main army arrived, Daihua would not last long. But I can't rush the attack. I need to wait for the 2 golden body powerhouses to determine the victor, and it would be best if both perished together. While he was plotting, the werewolf guards brought the bedraggled Hagula and white-eyed tiger before him. The 2 men were barely clothed, covered in black ash, and severely injured. A goodbye shot to his feet in astonishment and demanded, "What happened to you 2? Has Zojikan come to kill us?" White-eyed tiger hastily shouted, "Khan, there are planes pouring down extremely fierce artillery fire above us, please get ready immediately." Hagula also pointed to the sky and yelled, "Father! Father, you must get the cannons ready, there are formidable planes following us." A goodbye interrupted his son in confusion, "Planes? What kind of planes could have done this to you?" Before he could finish speaking, the gunboat suddenly burst through the clouds, emerging above everyone's heads. One glance at the aircraft revealed it was no ordinary vessel, and a goodbye commanded sternly, "Quick, get the cannons ready." The efficient werewolf guards instantly set up the artillery positions, with everything from automatic cannons to 150 caliber guns at their disposal. The gunners were all spirit refining gunners, including a goodbye himself. He was born in an inconspicuous small village, and later, thanks to his handsome appearance, was chosen to be the Khan's dancing boy. This humiliating and painful experience honed his spiritual will, giving him a capability akin to entering the spirit refining state. At that moment, he operated a 105 caliber cannon originating from Rakshasa, slowing down everything in the world as he aimed at the airplane high above and fired a shot. The cannonball was precisely aimed at the target, a distance of 6 kilometers, requiring 8 seconds of flight. Liu Yao, being in the spirit refinement realm, easily overpowered his opponent and was of course not hit. He used the machine gun as an anti-aircraft weapon, blowing up the incoming cannonballs in mid-air. Meanwhile, the girls inside the cabin immediately turned a different color. This time was somewhat different, the plane did not circle but flew straight across the entire army overhead. The 50,000-strong army packed together appeared from above like a strip of fried dough dropped on the ground, perfect for bombing. Liaoya busily worked on a control panel and then pressed the release button. The underbelly of the gunboat opened, and one bomb after another dropped out. Just as a goodbye loaded the second cannonball, he suddenly heard a piercing whistle, the noise produced by the bombs falling. The beastly instinct of the werewolves kicked in, warning him to run away fast. A goodbye followed his heart, and with a powerful surge of his feet, he burst forth over 100 meters. His decisive action saved his life once again. Only to hear a great burst of flames explode behind him, followed by a thunderous boom. The powerful shockwave swept over everything, crushing countless werewolf guards to powder and sent an endless amount of sand, debris, and parts flying in all directions. These items, like a violent storm, shot out towards the surroundings. Many who were standing just fine 1 second before were the next moment smashed into a heap of broken flesh by the whistling shrapnel. And what was more desperate was that there was more than one bomb. The gunboat roared overhead, dropping bombs in succession, averaging one every 60 meters. The ground burst open with one giant firework after another, turning a radius of 3 kilometers instantly into inferno. Those below the blood exchange realm were pulverized on the spot. A goodbye watched with his own eyes as one of his trusted fellows was turned to dust by the shockwave, while a 5-ton cannon, its barrel already deformed, crashed down nearby. At that moment, his face was blank. This is the devil. Hagula and White-Eyed Tiger hurried over, dragging their Khan as they fled for their lives. Meanwhile, the gunboat had entered into a circling pattern again, encircling the entire army from the sky, as the firepower on board opened fire all at once. A variety of cannonballs, under the control of the spirit-refining girls, rained down like droplets, precisely striking the crowd and carving out blurry trails of blood and flesh. The sounds of panicked screams and explosions merged into one. The dust was thrown into the air, making the whole world appear as if it was shrouded in mist. Chapter 326. Take your brain with you. The gunboat aircraft circled in the air while the enemy below ran around in panic, headless like flies. A few smarter ones hid behind trucks, took shelter in craters, or even covered themselves with corpses. But all this was in vain. From a commanding height, everything was in plain sight. There was no such thing as cover, making it impossible to avoid the strikes raining down from the sky. In 0.5x speed, everything in the world seemed to slow down. Li Pei ferociously fired the 105mm howitzer, with cannonballs screaming towards the enemy who turned to dust in the violent explosions. With one hand, he quickly loaded cannonballs nearly a meter long. On the ammunition rack, more than half of the 300 rounds remained, ready to be freely used. Occasionally there were tough nuts to crack, who, despite being covered in shock waves and shrapnel, were only injured and not killed. These were the few blood exchange realm masters with strong vitality that provided significant protection against artillery. Then, it was Liaoya's turn to take the stage. She was in charge of the 40mm autocannon, specifically targeting the enemy masters. This cannon was officially named the Bofors anti-aircraft autocannon, with projectiles slightly longer than a forearm and an initial speed close to 3 times the speed of sound. Martial artists below the level of innate mirror, even if their brains could react, their bodies could not keep up. Upon impact, targets would instantly turn into a spray of flesh, with higher realms leaving more intact corpses. At that moment, Liaoya took aim at Hagula. He ran extremely fast on all fours, hugging the ground to maximally evade artillery fire, moving somewhat like the Eve dragon stake. Years of mutual slaughter had led the extraordinary forces at home and abroad to master several methods of dealing with firearms to some degree. Unfortunately, these methods were of little use against an assault from the heavens. Liaoya entered the spirit-refining state, unleashing a round of thud-thud-thud-thud shooting, all 10 shots hitting their mark. Hagula let out a miserable scream as it was severed in half at the waist, losing an arm in the process. Its massive inertia caused its upper half to roll countless times on the ground before coming to a stop. Immediately afterward, Liaoya took aim at the white-eyed tiger. Just then, Liu Yao's voice came through, "Senior sister, don't damage the head, I want to cut it off for Master Yu." "Oh, all right," Liaoya nodded in response, followed by another volley of fire. Cannonballs howled out, blowing off the white-eyed tiger's legs, turning it into a tumbling gourd. Only then did Liaoya turn her head to ask, "How come you're out? Is Liao Qi flying the plane?" She has been envious for quite a while. Let her have some fun," Liu Yao replied. By now, the army beneath them had completely disintegrated, and the gunboat aircraft circled overhead, executing strafing runs. Since it was a flesh grab, he simply let the girl indulge in the action. Liao Qi, while piloting the aircraft, aimed the cannons on both sides at the enemy troops and opened fire. 4 lines of fire swept across the crowd, instantly leaving bodies strewn and fragments flying through the air. It was then that Li Pei shouted, "A goodbye spotted! He's making a break for it on his spirit pet. So fast!" A goodbye was seen riding his AO dog spirit pet, attempting to escape to the south at 400 km per hour. Liao Qi quickly maneuvered the aircraft into a wide turn to pursue, raining down fire from above, with various types of cannonballs pelting down like hail. But the AO dog spirit pet was not only fast but also extremely adept at making quick, agile turns within a short radius, dodging most of the attacks. However, it was pointless, as firing from a great height was a completely unfair advantage. For a full 3 minutes, the gunboat aircraft relentlessly bombarded a goodbye, until the heavily wounded giant AO dog let out a pained howl and collapsed. Its defensive capabilities and vitality even surpassed that of an innate martial artist. A spirit pet could also undergo a qualitative transformation after a blood exchange. Amidst billowing and smoke, a goodbye suddenly leapt up. Surrounded by craters and corpses, with people clutching at their severed limbs and wailing, the scene was akin to hell. Fury surged within. This aircraft had slaughtered his army like chickens, and he was utterly powerless against the great iron bird flying at 3,000 meters in the sky. Drawing a deep breath, a goodbye bellowed at the gunboat aircraft, "You coward! How about you come down and fight me in a duel?" The waves of his voice were visibly spreading, and even Liu Yao and the others could hear them aboard the plane. Liu Yao would have to be a fool to engage in a one-on-one duel at the height of his advantage with an opponent 1 realm higher. Bomb it, it still has the strength to talk. All right. The 3 girls immediately opened fire, and a barrage of cannonballs swept down. A goodbye's call-out was an attempt to lure an enemy down for a one-on-one fight, hoping to subdue the enemy and then try to take the gunboat. Anyone who could rise from a dancing boy to a Khan must be incredibly resolute and tough, contemplating a turnaround even in a hopeless situation. If I had this iron bird, it would be worth it even if the entire army was wiped out. But Liu Yao's family completely ignored the Khan's request for a duel, just bombarding a goodbye with a heap of cannonballs, making him run for cover. Shameless scoundrel! His movement was extremely fast, skittering irregularly across the ground at high speed, leaping hundreds of meters in a single bound, continuing to flee southward. But no matter how much he twisted and turned, it was in vain for the gunboat looming above him. The 3 girls entered the spirit refining state and kept firing continuously. A goodbye was hit by cannon after cannon, his body blossoming with injuries, and blood and flesh exploded everywhere. This creature's body had exceptionally high defensive strength. The 20mm fire god cannon could only make thumb-sized holes, the explosions of the 105 howitzer only charred its surface, only the 40mm autocannon could cause effective damage, blasting out huge, bowl-sized craters. A goodbye, however, was also finding ways to fight back. With the cannons destroyed, he picked up a spear from the ground and hurled it fiercely at the gunboat. The spear shot out with a terrifying whistling sound but sadly fell powerlessly after climbing only 2 kilometers into the sky, a whole 1,000 meters short of its target. Desperate, a goodbye turned to flee, his speed reaching 400 km per hour under his intense will to survive. But still, he was 50 km per hour slower than the gunboat, and running on the ground could never outpace flying in the sky. After being chased and bombarded by the gunboat for 3 minutes, he fell to the ground, riddled with terrifying holes, powerless to rise again. The 3 girls circled around him and continued firing for half a day, blasting him like a broken doll flying chaotically, with parts falling off him continuously. They stopped whipping the corpse only after another 3 minutes, by which time a goodbye was completely disfigured. Liu Yao surveyed the battlefield and said, "The enemy is annihilated, let's go down and clean up the battlefield." The 3 women jumped out one by one, deploying their wings to glide down from the air. Liu Yao was the last to leave, retracting the gunboat into the space-time bubble, lamenting the sudden drop in energy by 40%. The white-eyed tiger's eyes were slit with rage as it crawled forward using its remaining arm, and in the next second, someone landed from the sky in front of it. He hastily shouted, "Spare my life, I am willing to surrender. I know where the bandit leader hides his treasure, and I'm willing to take you there. Continue your adventure with my virtual library empire." Li Pei, with a face full of disgust, said, "A traitor who sides with demon beasts. It was it that plotted to injure my master. Liaoya also had a cold look on her face. This villain raised an army and revolted, slaughtering countless civilians from Qin and Longzhou and even set fire to the Dunhuang murals. His death is well deserved. The white-eyed tiger wanted to plead again. As an innate grandmaster, if he could just lower his pride and beg, surely he could preserve his life and make a comeback. But in the next second, Liu Yao had already grasped its throat. With force in his hand, amidst a disturbing, grating sound of pulling and tearing, he twisted its head off, along with half of its spine. Casually wrapping the head in a piece of clothing, the family then moved on to Hagula. This creature was gorging on the corpses strewn across the battlefield, its wounds healing at a visibly rapid pace, and its lower half slowly regrowing. Oh, you've got quite the appetite there. Liu Yao activated the plucking star movement technique and unleashed the Tathagata palm, arriving in an instant. With a daunting boom, all the holes in Hagula's body spit out sprays of blood, bouncing repeatedly on the ground. Liu Yao's palm struck the villain's chest, shattering its entire ribcage. Hagula came to a stop only after crashing into a huge rock, opening its mouth to say something but instead spat out a lump of lung tissue. And a shoe fell out of its embrace. Li Pei saw it all clearly and immediately spat out, "It's my master's shoe. This vile bastard." An otherworld woman's feet hold a unique sexual symbol, and this person carrying someone's shoes around was indeed quite lecherous. Liu Yao did the same as before, twisting off the lecher's head and taking it with him. Chapter 327. The spiritual sparrowhawk that obtained a huge benefit. The battlefield was a mess, shrouded in gun smoke. In the craters there were burnt corpses, and the air was full of a pungent smell. An AC-130 gunship was not considered very powerful on Blue Star and could easily be countered. But it had one advantage. It was brutal against weak opponents. Once the enemy lost air superiority, they could only be brutally suppressed until death. Moreover, its sustained output capability was very strong, which was perfect for the current environment. 3 spiritual sparrowhawks hovered in midair, fiercely flapping their wings to disperse the surrounding smoke, then diving down to peck at Hagula's chest. They also occasionally pushed each other away, seemingly anxiously competing. Liu Yao stepped forward and gave each one a bonk on the head, stopping the increasingly fierce contention. Li Pei explained, "This werewolf is at the rank of Earl, also known as innate, and its blood of the heart has great benefits." "Oh, and the werewolf's blood core is also inside the heart." Liu Yao immediately understood, reached out to remove Hagula's heart, and said to the 3 spiritual sparrowhawks, "I will feed you, open your mouths." The spiritual sparrowhawks hurriedly bowed their bodies and opened their mouths wide, like fledglings waiting to be fed. Liu Yao squeezed out the blood of the heart from the werewolf's heart and fed them one by one. After drinking, the 3 little ones visibly grew stronger and more vigorous. "It's that effective?" Liu Yao was somewhat surprised and then asked the 3 girls, "Do you want to drink some?" Looking at the blurred mess of a heart in front of them, the 3 women shook their heads repeatedly. "Let's not, we do not lack resources." "Too disgusting, I can't stomach it." "We have the 10 complete immortal pills daily, and your innate true chi to help. Whether we have this thing or not doesn't really matter." Seeing the girls' faces of disgust, Liu Yao shrugged his shoulders, fed the remaining blood of the heart to the spiritual sparrowhawks, and then extracted the blood core from the heart. This blood core showed a dark red color in the sunlight, not as bright as a vampire's, but more suitable for the spiritual sparrowhawks to use. The werewolf, being a demon beast, was essentially closer to a monster beast, and therefore, its essence was particularly suitable for nurturing spirit pets. Upon consuming all the werewolf's blood of the heart, the sparrows staggered around as if drunk on strong liquor, looking inebriated and unsteady on their feet. But the burgeoning of their vitality was visible to the naked eye, clearly benefiting greatly. The family then came to the place where a goodbye spirit pet, the giant mastiff, had died. Like the werewolf, a monster beast's monster core was also in its heart. It took a great deal of effort to extract the heart, as big as a water jar, and the 3 spiritual sparrowhawks immediately staggered over, mouths wide open, eager to eat again. Liu Yao, patting the babies' heads affectionately, said, "Don't be so greedy, I'll keep it for now and feed it to you after you've digested the benefits, okay?" The spiritual sparrowhawks seemed to know their master was looking out for their best interests and chirped a few times in agreement. At that moment, Li Pei said, "My lord, a blood exchange realm monster beast is a treasure all over. Let's take it all with us." Liu Yao nodded and put both the giant mastiff and its heart into the space-time bubble. Inside it, Time stood still, ensuring the freshness and quality. It only consumed 4% of the energy, which was acceptable. Subsequently, the family came to the place where a goodbye had died. This low-born hero, who had dominated the western regions for decades, died in an exceedingly suffocating manner, without even seeing the face of his enemy, and what's more, his entire head had been blown off. Find adventures at my virtual library empire. After dominating the western frontier, it conspired with the Rakshasa and Einheit to sign multiple unequal treaties, engaging in brutal economic plunder and murder, and cannibalism became commonplace. Interestingly enough, the kings and nobles of the western frontier originally defied the imperial court's rule, rebelling time and again. But once a goodbye arrived, it didn't take many days for them to start longing for the days of the imperial court, traveling thousands of miles to Imperial City to seek aid, fully supporting Minister Zhou's western expedition. At this moment, Liu Yao, following the same method, took out a goodbye's heart again. As soon as he did, he felt as if he was holding a blazing fireball in his hands. The heart was clear and translucent, looking as though it was made of crystal. It had merged with the blood core, indistinguishable from one another. The surging life force made this crystal heart burn as hot as a fireball. The heart of a werewolf of Earl level corresponded to that of a flawless warrior, reaching the flesh realm. The bodily essence of a demon beast at this realm contained all manner of wondrous properties. Liu Yao approvingly praised, "This crystal werewolf heart is a prime material for alchemy, requiring a cultivator of the spirit refining stage or higher to refine it. We should find an opportunity to invite Master Zhou to concoct the life creation pill together." According to the records, the pill can reattach severed limbs, and no matter the injury, as long as the head remains, one can recover. Upon hearing how formidable this item was, everyone became excited and elated. Liu Yao placed the crystal-like heart into the space-time bubble, consuming 5% of its energy. A small heart, yet it consumed more energy than the AO dog as big as a truck before, which was enough to show its extraordinariness. Next, together with the help of the 3 spiritual sparrowhawks, they collected all the werewolf blood cores scattered across the battlefield. There were as many as 200, big and small. Although the majority were at the organ refining realm, the sheer number made up for the lack in quality. With this large number of blood cores, the spiritual sparrowhawks wouldn't lack resources for a very long time. The 3 spiritual sparrowhawks following behind their master reaped tremendous benefits. They feasted on the werewolf blood of the heart to the point of being satiated, with their bellies round as water tanks, so much so that they couldn't even fly and lay on the ground, drunkenly unmoving. Their bodily vital energy had become so dense that the air around their bodies began to blur. Li Pei commented from the side, "For spirit pets and monster beasts, the greatest benefit comes from devouring their own kind. Having eaten so much, they have certainly surpassed the limits of the marrow cleansing realm and will inevitably advance to the blood exchange process." Liaoya and Liao Qi were quite excited. The 2 drawing enthusiasts often saw images of spirit birds at the blood exchange realm in stories. Then they will be able to carry people flying. It must be fun. Yet, we won't have to cling for flying like now, but rather sit on their backs, soaring through the sky with grace and elegance. This was good news, but Liu Yao rubbed his brow in worry. The mind cleansing of the 3 little ones is very dangerous. The cultivation paths of monster beasts and martial artists were significantly different, and categorizing them according to the martial Dao realm was just for convenience. Moreover, their body structures were entirely different. Even with Liu Yao's inner vision, the help he could offer was limited. At this moment, he felt extremely anxious. Having spent considerable time together, the deep emotional bond made him reluctant to see any harm come to the spiritual sparrowhawks. Li Pei offered reassurance, "Life always finds a way. Believe in them, these spirits of the skies will surely overcome this hurdle." At this moment, the 3 bloated spiritual sparrowhawks, adopting a pose similar to hens incubating eggs, lay nested down, sleeping off their intoxication deeply. Liu Yao gently stroked their necks, infusing them with innate true qi, helping them to completely absorb these benefits. Comforted by their master's touch, the spiritual sparrowhawks slept even more soundly. Liu Yao said, "Pai Pei, you take the bandits' heads back with you, so Grandmaster Yu doesn't worry. I will stay here to watch over them." Li Pei bowed deeply, "Yes, my lord, I'll go right away." Chapter 328. Twin Grandmasters in one school. Daihua City had entirely entered a state of war preparedness. Commanding officers were continuously patrolling on the city walls, loudly reprimanding the ordinary soldiers who hid and trembled behind the walls. Large-caliber artillery was ready for action at any moment, and the gunners, all hailing from the artillery school, still held a decent fighting will. But regardless of their rank, a sense of unease was evident on everyone's faces to some degree. There's an old saying, generals are the soldiers' courage. In the wars of the other world, victory was not yet entirely dependent on firearms, the role of martial experts was irreplaceable. Initially, with General Lu leading the troops, a Gubai's side didn't even dare to show their faces. And the Western Expedition Army was in high spirits, driving the bandits into a frantic retreat, capturing 3 major strongholds including Daihua City within 2 months. But once General Lu left, the situation reversed abruptly. Now, all the experts in Daihua City were suppressed by the enemy to the point where they dared not leave their doors, having completely lost their line of sight. It was like being stuck at a high ground in a game, unable to come out, with failure only being a matter of time. If it hadn't been for the news of Grandmaster Yu's Jr., Grandmaster Lu's arrival, the military's morale would have been even more turbulent. At this time, Lu Hintang, Yu Yanmei, and a host of other senior officers arrived at the city wall to inspect and stabilize the soldiers' morale. Everybody looked solemn, yet there was a trace of puzzlement among them. Today was the 3rd day since they had received the news. Judging by the werewolves' mobilization speed, they should have started the siege already. But as the sun was nearly setting, there was still no sign of anyone. Just as they were pondering this, suddenly someone shouted, "They're here!" A large crowd appeared on the horizon, hurrying toward Daihua City. Amidst the sharp whistles, the soldiers hastily readied themselves. Rifles were cocked with bullets loaded, and the cannons adjusted their muzzles, ready to fire at a moment's notice. Damn it, it's the same old trick of using civilians to siege the city, prepare to fire. Wait, something's not right. Lu Hintang felt that something was amiss, as at the edge of his vision there were only civilians of various ethnicities and nobody driving them. He gave a knowing look, and saw the 2 officers who had previously helped Liu Yao with the artillery spring into action. One of them was a burly figure with arms as thick as the average person's thighs. This was the left camp commander, Tan Baqi. He took a horse stance and crouched down, layering his hands in front of his lower abdomen. The other officer was long and lean, with a waist like a male dog's. This was the right camp commander, Dong Fuxiang. Dong Fuxiang stepped on Tan Baqi's folded hands and shouted, "Up!" The latter exhaled forcefully and shoved upwards with a loud grunt. Using this momentum, Dong Fuxiang leaped 100 meters high. His pupils constricted, taking advantage of the altitude to instantly discern the distant objects, and immediately reported back. "It's just a bunch of muddy-legged peasants, no one else." The officers were amazed. A Gubai's men aren't there. What is this? Do they want to send these people over to drain our resources? After waiting a bit longer, more and more refugees arrived beneath the city, all of whom had their homes destroyed and then were captured to attack the city as cannon fodder. But busy with their escape, they couldn't provide a clear explanation. All they knew was that there was continuous cannon fire, explosions could be heard for miles, and moreover, the attacks seemed to be coming from the sky. The more they thought about it, the less they understood, but Gubai's troops had definitely encountered trouble. Just as Lu Hintang was about to summon a Dare to Die squad to venture out and investigate, Li Pei hurried back carrying 2 bags. Half an hour later, at Lu Hintang's residence, 2 sinister-looking heads were placed on the square table. Even with such a disheveled appearance, everyone present recognized who they were. The son of a Gubai and the notorious bandit, White-Eyed Tiger. The most hated by those present was the White-Eyed Tiger. This scoundrel had plagued Qingzhou and Long State for years, with crimes beyond count. Moreover, he was notoriously cruel and deceitful, and many had suffered at his hands. Now, the state of these heads clearly showed they had been twisted off while still alive. Everyone looked on with great satisfaction, yet they were puzzled about who had done it and looked at Lu Hintang together. Lu Hintang, despite having confirmed it several times, still couldn't help but ask, "Grandmaster Yu, did you say that your junior Grandmaster Lu assassinated a Gubai and his son, as well as the bandit White-Eyed Tiger?" Yu Yanmei coldly replied, "That's correct, the heads serve as proof." Liu Yao also detonated the bandits' firearms depot, severely damaging the enemy forces. "You can send someone to investigate and confirm." Upon hearing this, the room erupted into an uproar. Everyone found it hard to believe these myth-like claims. It was as if one was stuck on high ground, almost certain to lose, when suddenly an ally came out of nowhere and demolished the enemy base. It was utterly fantastical. But the two heads on the table could not be fake. Even Yu Yanmei herself found it hard to believe, but her son-in-law had often performed astonishing feats, capable of doing the inconceivable, so it wasn't impossible. Lu Hintang slammed his hand on the table, silencing the noisy crowd, dispatch someone immediately to verify the facts. Commander Dong, this is a matter of great importance, I must trouble you to go personally. Dong Fuxiang saluted with a fist, this subordinate obeys. After saying this, he saluted Yu Yanmei and then chose several scouts skilled in movement to lead a team for investigation. Everyone waited in place, and within just half an hour, a scout from the organ refining realm hastened back with a report. Report, following Commander Dong, we found the enemy vanguard 80 li to the southeast, completely annihilated. After speaking, he presented the captured bandit flags. Everyone gathered around to examine the flags, their faces still filled with astonishment, and repeatedly asked, "They're all gone? How did they die?" The scout reported, "They all perished from artillery bombardments, few bodies are intact." After a while, a sweat-drenched Dong Fuxiang returned. He took a deep breath to calm his astonishment and shouted, "The army of a goodbye has been wiped out, with corpses strewn across the fields, annihilated. I have seen this with my own eyes, there is absolutely no falsehood." Excellent! With his trusted general having seen it with his own eyes, Lu Hintang had no more doubts and rose from his seat to command. "Prepare the troops to break camp. First we take Turpan city, then in one fell swoop, we seize Korla. Korla is the core strategic location occupied by the bandits, and once it falls, the rest will pose no threat." Everyone shouted in unison, "We obey the command." At that moment, there was no longer any doubt in the generals' minds, and they frequently glanced at the calm Yu Yanmei and Li Pei, muttering in voices as quiet as mosquitoes. A goodbye incurred Grandmaster Yu's wrath, bringing down a calamity upon himself. The one surnamed Lu must have a powerful ace up his sleeve, no telling what kind of methods he possesses. Princess Yongping has found herself an impressive husband. She's already renounced her title of commandery princess, you can't keep calling her that. Bullshit, with a family that boasts 2 grandmasters, do you dare bet with me she will regain her title within the year? Many who were slow to react now remembered. 1 family, 2 grandmasters. The heads of prominent sects and top families were at the innate realm. Suddenly boasting too, they were already among the most formidable powers in the world. Enjoy more content from my virtual library empire. Even those in the golden body realm would have to carefully consider whether it was worth provoking a sect known for producing top-notch assassins. Chapter 329. The Ultimate Flying Experience. Following their master on this hunting trip, the spiritual sparrowhawks benefited tremendously. Their bodies had reached their limit and it was time for the next step, breaking through their current realm. The battlefield was littered with corpses, and the stench was unbearable. Lu Yao, along with the 2 sisters, picked up their 3 spirit sparrowhawks and headed to a nearby mountain. Liao Ye, holding Ping'an, felt that it weighed only about 60 kilograms and couldn't help but express her surprise, "It's so big and yet so light." Lu Yao explained with a smile, "Birds, in order to facilitate flight, evolved what is called pneumatic bones. Bones that are hollow and filled with air. This not only reduces the weight of the body but also enhances its strength, making it suitable for flying." Upon hearing this, Liao Ye said admiringly, "Junior brother, you sure know a lot." "Ha, I guess I do." They chatted and laughed as they reached the mountain top, found a sheltered and quiet place, and carefully set down the spiritual sparrowhawks. And so, the family temporarily settled there to watch over the spiritual sparrowhawks as they took the next step in their transformation. During this time, they even dragged the bodies of a goodbye and his son over. The spiritual sparrowhawks needed a large amount of energy to break through to the next realm, and the flesh and blood of 2 high-ranking werewolves were perfect for this purpose. In fact, the corpse of the white-eyed tiger could have been used as well, but Lu Yao didn't want his spirit pets to consume humans, no matter how utterly wicked they were. Fortunately, the flesh of the 2 demon beasts was more than sufficient. Experience new tales on my virtual library empire. Over the next half-month, the felonious werewolf father and son were gradually turned into sparrowhawk droppings. It can truly be said that they gave everything they had to Lu Yao. For half a month, the spiritual sparrowhawks ate and slept, adopting the posture of nesting birds day after day. Lu Yao and the 2 sisters watched over them with utmost caution, preventing any disturbances. He sent them innate true qi every day and used inner vision to check on them from time to time, doing everything possible to help his precious babies. The sisters took turns patrolling with tree branches, not even allowing insects to come close to them. All three were very nervous, taking turns to rest and to watch over them day and night, desperately hoping nothing would go wrong with any of the babies. But the spiritual sparrowhawks had already developed a very strong foundation thanks to Liu Yao's tireless and meticulous care. Moreover, the advantages they had gained this time were too substantial. Entire werewolf armies turned into their nourishment from top to bottom. This was a qualitative change, enough to stack their ranks purely by the sheer amount of resources consumed. The key point was, none of the spiritual sparrowhawks were mediocrities, each had its own extraordinary talents. Ji Xiang was cunning, but also the smartest among them. Ru Yi was like a lovable simpleton, yet possessed an extremely resolute spirit, never admitting defeat. Ping An's decisiveness and bravery marked it as the most natural leader of the three. Liu Yao gently stroked their backs, whispering softly, "You guys will be fine." Thus, without any mishaps, the 16th day arrived. The three spiritual sparrowhawks woke up one after the other and gently touched their owners with their necks. Liu Yao quickly probed them with the power of his mind force. He saw that the spiritual sparrowhawk's vital energy was terrifyingly thick, about 10 times that of a martial artist of the same realm. As they chirped and stimulated their vital energy, the air around their bodies started to blur slightly. Having spent half a month, they had finally advanced to the blood exchange realm. The three of them were overjoyed. Liu Yao kept exclaiming, "Spirit pets do not have inner breath, yet their physical bodies are truly formidable." At that moment, he recalled the giant mastiff that had taken 3 minutes of cannon fire before it died. The spiritual sparrowhawks would also undergo a transformation. Just then, the two sisters cried out in alarm. What happened was that the feathers on the spiritual sparrowhawks were falling off in large patches, turning them into pitifully bald and ugly birds. And their talons and sharp beaks showed signs of shedding. But this was the mark of a successful breakthrough. Just as humans shed baby teeth, the spiritual sparrowhawks would shed their old feathers, claws, and beaks after breaking through. They were also hungry, their bellies rumbling as they cried out to their master, signaling their immense hunger. Liu Yao took out the giant Ao dog's body from the space-time bubble, perfectly preserved. The three spiritual sparrowhawks immediately pounced on it to feast. At this moment, there was no better food than the flesh of their kin to help them stabilize their new realm. Liu Yao even generously offered the high-quality blood cores he had previously cherished to feed them. Spirit pets had robust bodies and strong blood vitality, growing incredibly quickly as long as they weren't deprived of external resources. Just like humans, the breakthrough and stabilization of realms for the spiritual sparrowhawks didn't happen overnight. Half a month later, under the care of many fine delicacies, the three spiritual sparrowhawks completely stabilized their realm and grew much larger. Now they were 3 meters in body length, with a wingspan of over 6 meters, their sharp teeth, beaks and feathers glinting with a glaze-like luster, looking quite splendid. Especially the flying feathers on their wings, used for beating the air and protecting their bodies, which now shimmered with a cold metallic edge. Liaoya and Liao Qi, out of curiosity, touched them only to find the feathers extremely tough and sharp. Bear in mind, the two sisters were now immune to small-caliber bullets, but their skin was easily sliced open by these feathers, evidence of their sharpness and hardness. At this time, the three spiritual sparrowhawks lowered their bodies willingly, chirping continuously at their masters, clearly indicating they wanted them to ride. Liu Yao and his two companions immediately mounted their backs. The spiritual sparrowhawks flapped their wings, creating a wild gust that swept the mountaintop with flying sand and stones, causing many slender plants to bend over and collapse. The next instant, the spiritual sparrowhawks soared into the sky with their masters. They reached an altitude of 10,000 meters in just 3 minutes. A few flaps of their wings, and they were flying at a speed of 600 kilometers per hour. At that moment, the strong airflow struck the faces of Liu Yao and his two companions, and all they could hear was the whooshing of the wind. This level of gravity and wind was nothing to them, and all three had practiced the Eve Dragon stake so they could firmly adhere to the backs of the spiritual sparrowhawks. What followed was an ultimate flying experience given by the spiritual sparrowhawks to their masters. The birds performed various difficult maneuvers in the sky, sometimes tumbling, sometimes spinning rapidly, and finally they even broke through clouds in a steep dive. The wings of the spiritual sparrowhawks folded together to form something like an arrowhead, reaching an astonishing speed of 1,000 km per hour, plummeting straight towards the ground. The intense airflow hammering against them, the scenery around them flashing by like lightning, adrenaline involuntarily pumping, an extreme sense of pleasure stimulating their brains. The three couldn't help but shout out loud. Ah! Just as they were about to slam into the ground, the three spiritual sparrowhawks suddenly spread their wide wings, greatly reducing their speed. Their rapid descent transformed into a gentle float, smoothly gliding. From stillness to motion, they were as smooth as silk, truly masters of airflow control. Liu Yao smiled at his precious pets, impressive. Now, let's head home. The spiritual sparrowhawks chirped in unison and took flight with their masters towards Daihua City. At this moment, it was sunset, and the western frontier's sun was stunningly beautiful, a golden orb slowly sinking, turning the entire horizon into a shade of orange. Liu Yao, seated on the back of his pets, admired the beautiful scene, feeling that all his efforts were worthwhile. In Daihua City, 3 giant birds with wingspans over 6 meters glided across the sky. The various livestock on the ground were paralyzed by an ancestral fear encoded in their genes, falling to the ground, some even losing control of their bladder and bowels. Countless people pointed and discussed the sight above them. If it weren't for the fact that there were people seated atop these creatures, they would have been panicked and screaming in fright. Those with cultivation in their bodies realized immediately. Blood exchange realm spirit birds. And 3 of them. These were indeed the trump cards of Grandmaster Liu. Chapter 330. He Zhaosheng. Liu Yao and his companions returned, riding the mythical spiritual sparrowhawk, and the blood exchange realm fierce birds were witnessed by many. In the ancient times, they were known as blood exchange realm great demons and had contended with the human race for thousands of years. They were as robust as tanks, extremely resilient to damage, and it often took more than 5 martial artists of the same realm to band together to defeat one. The birds of prey were, even more, at the pinnacle of the pyramid, capable of causing several times more destruction than the beasts. Stay tuned for updates on my virtual library empire. The news spread throughout the city in an instant, and everyone had their wild guesses about the total annihilation of Agubai's army. But one thing was certain. Messing with Liu Yao's clan had just become even more formidable. With blood exchange realm spirit birds at their command, their mobility was virtually unbeatable, allowing them to strike or retreat at will, and hiding abroad would be futile for their enemies. In the courtyard, Yu Yanmei and Li Paizhen joyfully came out to greet them. Li Pei gently touched the white feathers of the spiritual sparrowhawk, admiringly saying, like flowing clouds and shining streams, this plumage is truly beautiful and splendid. The spiritual sparrowhawk allowed the petting without resistance, and Ji Xiang even affectionately rubbed its head against her. Yu Yanmei also wanted to touch, but the sparrows bowed their bodies and showed clear signs of vigilance. These high-flying spirits were very proud, and while it was acceptable for them to be touched by Li Pei, who was filled with the scent of their master, they were less accommodating to Yu Yanmei. Just as Grandmaster Yu felt a hint of regret, Liu Yao gave the 3 beasts a look, and they grudgingly opened for business, allowing her to touch them. A rare smile appeared on Yu Yanmei's usually cold face, truly extraordinary and full of spiritual grace. The spiritual sparrowhawks, with their clear and pure minds, could sense from their physical contact that the human woman before them bore no ill will and was indeed very powerful. Curiously, they tilted their heads and stared at her. Yu Yanmei, in fact, yearned to ride the spiritual sparrowhawk into the sky for a whirl, but ultimately was too shy to voice her desire. At that moment, Li Pei spoke up, "My lord, some days after clearing the battlefield, Lu Zongbing personally delivered 15,000 taels in silver notes." She then took out a stack of silver notes from the Fukong Bank. Liao Qi exclaimed in surprise, "Why so much?" After Li Pei explained, everyone understood. The corpses of the low-rank werewolves, which Liu Yao disregarded, were great tonics and quite suitable for martial artists to consume. There were also the remains of the white-eyed tiger. Even though its head was twisted off and its value decreased, it was still worth 1,000 taels. Various weapons and military supplies were also included. But these were just the small part, the real bulk was the bounty on the white-eyed tiger, amounting to a whopping 12,000 taels. This money wasn't provided by the imperial court but was collected by the noble families of Qin and Long states, and also by various grand Buddhist temples and martial arts sects. The white-eyed tiger had desecrated homes, dug up ancestral graves, and even burned the murals in Dunhuang. These murals were not only treasures of Buddhism but also the spiritual wealth shared by all. Countless people had their epiphanies before the mysterious murals and broke through to the spirit refinement realm. That's why the white-eyed tiger was hunted down like a street rat to the western frontier and took refuge with foreign enemies. Li Pei concluded with a smile, by killing this vermin, my lord, you have not only profited but also made a name for yourself across the world. The girls surrounded Liu Yao, holding their fists in mock salute, teasing, congratulations to Grandmaster Liu. Liu Yao said proudly, well said. Well said. After some laughter and teasing, Yu Yanmei suddenly said, Liu Zizi, you've reached the innate realm on your own, but I'm not sure if your breakthrough was perfect. Let's exchange a few moves, so I can see the extent of your cultivation. It was indeed a great opportunity to be fed moves by a senior, and Liu Yao was not going to decline. Thank you, Grandmaster Yu, for your guidance. During the month that Liu Yao cared for the spiritual Sparrowhawk's realm transformation, Yu Yanmei's injuries had fully recovered. As they began, both simultaneously executed the plucking star movement technique and collided like lightning. The original Zai Xing Shen was something Liu Yao could only use as a burst skill, maintaining the extreme speed of 500 km per hour for just 1 second. But after reaching the innate realm, his body underwent a qualitative change and, with the aid of true qi, the plucking star movement technique could now be maintained for 5 seconds. Liu Yao and Yu Yanmei turned into a black and a white shadow, continuously colliding with each other, exchanging blows dozens of times in the blink of an eye. Bang! Crack! Muffled sounds and explosions erupted in succession, with the force of the blows whipping up a wild wind that kicked up sand and stones throughout the courtyard. Li Pei and the Liao family sisters raised their hands to protect their faces, blown back again and again, barely able to make out the two fighters' movements. They all exclaimed in admiration. Such speed! Is this the level of Grandmaster class powerhouses? We definitely couldn't handle the third move. Don't bring the house down. At this moment, the commotion of the two fighting was heard outside the yard. Martial artists looked on with envy, wanting to witness the fight but not daring to. It was clear they were practicing moves, and peeping without permission could result in a beating without a chance to complain. Those with lower cultivation hurriedly retreated far away. At this level of combat, even being hit by a stray pebble could mean instant death. In the arena, after exchanging a few more blows, Liu Yao suddenly launched blood battle in all directions, his arms transforming into a mass of black shadows, his fists making a terrifying whistling sound as he struck. Yu Yanmei also swung her fists in retaliation, with the rolling thunder-like boom resonating continuously as the stone tiles under their feet were left spotless by the force of their true qi, even cleaner than if licked by a dog. After exchanging over 100 punches, both of them retreated to catch their breath. Yu Yanmei, being a whole major realm higher, seemed to still have energy to spare, and composedly said, Liu Zizi, where is your Tathagata palm? Let me see it. Liu Yao said loudly, then please be careful, this move is quite powerful. Having said that, he formed the immovable fundamental seal with his left hand and suddenly struck out with his right, using only 70% of his strength. Yu Yanmei stepped forward to meet his attack, with a palm strike of her own. The next instant, a thunderous boom blasted, as though a cannon had fired, and the ground beneath their feet was suddenly gouged out by 3 feet. Yu Yanmei flew backward, her feet ploughing deep grooves in the ground before she managed to stop just short of hitting the courtyard wall. She nodded in praise, not bad, this move is powerful enough to kill someone in the leakless realm, truly worthy of the peerless martial arts passed down for over 1,000 years. Liu Yao bowed with his fists clasped and said, thank you for the guidance, Grandmaster Yu. This session of practicing moves was of great significance to him, equivalent to a thorough self-check. He had gained a profound understanding of his current level of cultivation, and further reference for his future path. Yu Yanmei said indifferently, Liu Zizi, although you have the spiritual sparrowhawk, you still need to practice controlling the qi more, it helps a lot with your movement technique. The younger generation understands. Controlling the qi refers to mastering innate true qi, enabling martial artists to hover in the air for extended periods. During her first experience with wingsuit flying, Yu Yanmei soared 200 meters high, not only due to her strong physique but also because of the effects of controlling the qi. Following that, Liu Yao focused on practicing this skill, especially addressing the deficiencies exposed during the practice session. Meanwhile, the Western Expedition Army was making extremely smooth progress. All 3 chiefs of the bandits had met with violent deaths, leading to a rout. With Commander Lu Hintang at the helm, the army was unstoppable, swiftly capturing strategic locations such as Turpan, Daban, Toksan, and Korla. Thus, apart from the Ili region occupied by the Rakshasas, the entire western frontier was reclaimed. Facing this, the Rakshasa's side was suddenly in deep trouble. In that moment, the Duke Alexei Patkin, dressed in a magnificent purple cloak, crushed the crystal goblet in his hand, allowing the fresh blood within to flow down his palm. A goodbye, that incompetent fool! He had just telegraphed that he was about to take Daihua city, and in the blink of an eye, his whole army was wiped out. Werewolves truly are filthy idiots. The powerful vampire cursed a few times but also knew that continuing the fight was pointless. The Rakshasas had suffered devastating losses in one battle, and their finances were drained, leaving them without the strength to launch another large-scale war. Yet, he was unwilling to have wasted several months in vain, so he gently shook the bell in his hand, summoning his blood slave, and ordered. Send a telegram to the Tsar, say. Warfare for us will be enormously costly, endless, and fruitless. It's time to seize more benefits through diplomatic means. Chapter 331. Zhou Gong has an invitation. The situation in the western frontier was looking up, and the war seemed to be nearing its end. Just at that time, the Rakshasas suddenly exerted pressure on the western frontier issue, threatening to send more troops and launch a total war. Moreover, the Shun dynasty's imperial court was in financial trouble at the time, already unable to support the western expedition army. Faced with such threats from the neighboring powers, it actually caved. Abnormal voices started to spread throughout the court, and Li Zhongtang was the first to submit a proposal. The western frontier is an outland of desolation, with vast deserts and scorched earth stretching for thousands of miles. The land is barren and sparsely populated, and not of high value. At this moment, going to war with the Rakshasa would be particularly unwarranted. It would be better to give up on the development efforts, redirect the provisions for withdrawal towards maritime defense. He suggested giving up on the western frontier and reallocating the saved silver for maritime defense. The Beiyang fleet, which had been badly damaged, had yet to recover, and fixing a single battleship ended up costing even more than purchasing a new one. Meanwhile, Izumo had recovered its vitality with the assistance of Einheit. There were not a few officials who harbored such thoughts. In their eyes, the western frontier was a barren land, and getting involved in a major conflict over it was hardly worth it. Even reaping the benefits of any gains to date would be fine, let alone giving up Ili. Therefore, the voices advocating for peace negotiations soared unprecedentedly. Emperor Yong'an immediately summoned Zhou Gong back to court for a report to discuss the matter. It seemed that the peace negotiation faction had swayed him. Zhou Gong, on the other hand, did not pay any attention to the court's summons and completely ignored the various voices saying "quit while you're ahead." Instead, he issued a direct order. The army was to march forth, aiming straight for Ili, to have a decisive battle with the Rakshasa. The message was clear. Act now, talk later, fight first, discuss afterward. Any clear-eyed person can see that the Rakshasa is the weakest among the powers. They are just bluffing, and yet the imperial court is actually considering giving up the western frontier to negotiate peace. It's not that simple. This is about the court officials competing for military spending. At that moment, Liu Yao's family was escorting the army along with Yu Yanmei to Ili. The military generals nearby expressed their opinions on the disputes within the court. However, everyone appeared relaxed, seemingly confident in Zhou Gong's certain victory. Liu Yao knew well that Zhou Gong's approach was the most correct at this time. If you don't take a firm stance, I'll force you to. Hey ho! Hey ho! Voices chanting work songs came from nearby as countless people and animals pushed forward a 280mm coastal artillery cannon. This cannon, produced by Jihad, was tremendously powerful. A single hit could slice off a chunk of a golden body level expert's health bar, putting them at a significant disadvantage in battle. The thing weighed 27 tons, but luckily it could be disassembled into 3 parts for transport. Sometimes, when the road was difficult, Liu Yao did not hesitate to come over and help push. During the journey, the soldiers and generals developed a good impression of him. Stay updated with my virtual library empire. Liu Yao was full of anticipation. He wanted to witness the battle of the golden body experts firsthand and broaden his horizons. But by the time they reached the capital of Ili, Yining City, they had still not seen a trace of the Rakshasa people. All the cities along the way had been abandoned, and the whole march seemed like an armed parade. Li Pei said, "My lord, the Rakshasa Duke has abandoned all the towns along the way and is fleeing rapidly, clearly not willing to fight." Liu Yao nodded, faced with Zhou Gong's assembly of a large army and the posture for a decisive battle, the demon beasts have chickened out. In Yining City, the Duke Patkin of the Rakshasa did not run further, running away would mean completely giving up on Ili. This would damage his reputation, negatively affect his political career, and pose an obstacle to obtaining a true dukedom. A dukedom was highly significant for his kind, so he had to put up at least a semblance of resistance. At this time, Duke Patkin straightened his collar, planning to spar with the human experts of Shun country for a bit, then retreat under the excuse of insufficient military strength. As for fighting to the death, that was out of the question. He had centuries of life to enjoy, why risk it in a deadly combat? With great power and an extended youth, one could enjoy a wonderful life. Why take unnecessary risks? Deadly combat was not out of the question, only if the benefits were sufficient. But for the Tsar's interests, better not. Below Yining City, Liu Yao also met the man who led the Western Frontier's military campaign. Zhou Gong. He had only seen him through a drone before, this was the first time he was meeting him in person. He was robust and his eyes were like torches, his square face clearly showing his integrity. Yet, there was a faint aura of decay about him, giving the impression he was nearing the end of his strength. Near him stood a coffin, signifying his resolve to fight the invaders to the death and reclaim Ili. Liu Yao immediately understood. This man, Zhou Gong, didn't have much longer to live. He wanted to settle the matter of the western frontier once and all before his death. At this moment, Zhou Gong glanced over the gathered army and declared loudly, "Gentlemen, the Rakshasa are merely bluffing. Today, we shall join forces to break the metal and reclaim our lost lands." The officers and soldiers responded with a resounding chant, "Kill the enemy! Kill the enemy! Kill the enemy!" Zhou Gong leaped in front of Yining City and bellowed, "Patkin, dare you face me in battle?" This shout was like thunder from a clear sky, leaving ears buzzing. The Rakshasa garrison in Yining City immediately turned their cannons, attempting to bombard Zhou Gong. And Liu Yao had already adjusted the 280mm coastal gun that had been brought in, his mind force infusing the cannonballs as he fired suddenly. With a tremendous boom, the muzzle flashed with great fire and thick smoke. A 350kg shell whistled out of the barrel, flying over a distance of 6 kilometers with a terrifying howl, and landed precisely in the artillery placement on the city walls. First came a dazzling flash of light, followed by a deafening explosion. Within a 50-meter radius, the Rakshasa gunners were reduced to ashes, and several Rakshasa cannons were flung from the ramparts. The soldiers cheered, and even Zhou Gong looked over and nodded in acknowledgement. Liu Yao had already grabbed the second cannonball to load. At that time, there was no movement from within the city, and the Duke-level vampires hadn't shown themselves. Zhou Gong shouted again, "Patkin, dare you face me in battle? Patkin, dare you face me in battle?" After the third shout, Patkin finally showed himself on the city walls. This Duke-level vampire powerhouse was surrounded by dark red, flame-like patterns, giving a cold glance at Liu Yao's cannon as if he were quite wary of it. Those swept by his gaze instantly felt as if they had been doused with ice-cold water. Yu Yanmei quickly reminded him, "Once the battle begins, you bombard that demon beast with the cannon. Even if you can't kill it, you can diminish its strength and create an opportunity for Zhou Gong." Liu Yao nodded in understanding. This was also the significance of the cannon, as long as it could deplete the health of the opponent in the Golden Body realm. Yu Yanmei herself drew her sword, ready to support Zhou Gong when the time came. And Zhou Gong, with a sudden surge of momentum, firmly locked onto Patkin. The swirling true chi formed a tornado, pushing away the soil and stones under his feet. The situation was on a knife edge, poised to explode into battle. Liu Yao was also rubbing his hands together in anticipation, ready to give it his all. He was confident that together with Zhou Gong, they could slay this demon beast. But what happened next was completely unexpected. The vampire powerhouse suddenly turned into a blood shadow and fled into the sky. In full view of everyone, this powerful Rakshasa had actually fled, without even a word of pretense. Everyone was speechless for a long time. Yu Yanmei sheathed her sword and snorted towards the direction it fled. These demon beasts bully the weak and fear the strong, not even daring to face Zhou Gong. Li Pei laughed, "It probably knows. Zhou Gong is truly willing to go down together with it. Plus with your cannon aimed at it, it could have been an accident waiting to happen, how could it not be afraid?" At that moment, having witnessed the cowardly escape, Liu Yao suddenly recalled a phrase. "Imperialists are paper tigers." After that, the army naturally took control of Yining City. There were only a few Rakshasa soldiers left in the city. Patkin had long since sent away his elite and confidants. This proved that it had planned its escape from the very beginning. With this, the conflict in the entire western frontier was completely resolved. But for Zhou Gong, this was only the first step of his plan, the rest was the key. He didn't just intend to recover the western frontier but also planned to establish it as a province. This wasn't a task for one generation but a great undertaking for eternal benefit. Seeing that matters had come to a satisfying conclusion, Liu Yao and his family also planned to leave. This trip had been hugely rewarding, and Liu Yao himself was quite content, feeling it had been well worth the journey. On the day before they were to depart, Zhou Gong's son, Zhou Xiaoyi, suddenly came to visit, politely requesting, "Grandmaster Liu, my father requests your presence." Chapter 332. The overreaching dragon will have regrets. The temporary residence of Minister Zhou was bustling with activity, with officials, scholars, and common people coming and going all the time. Faint sounds of conversations could be heard. Move the mulberry trees from Jiangsu and Zhejiang to the western regions. Employ craftsmen from Huzhu to teach the techniques of planting mulberry, raising silkworms, boiling cocoons, reeling silk, and weaving. Minister Zhou placed great importance on building up the western frontier, and the promotion of the silk industry was one of the measures for economic recovery. When Liu Yao arrived, Minister Zhou had just seen off a group of visitors and was writing a petition. He showed no intention to hide, freely wielding his brush and splashing ink. The two routes north and south of Tian Shan Mountain are rich in grain production, melons and fruits are abundant, livestock grazes everywhere, and mineral reserves are plentiful. The so-called thousand-mile desert is actually a basin of treasures. Now that the bandits have been subdued and foreign enemies have retreated, as a strategy for enduring peace and order, I request the establishment of provinces and counties in the western frontier. Liu Yao waited patiently until he finished the petition, then bowed with his fists and said, "Junior pays his respects to Minister Zhou." Minister Zhou put down his writing brush and a smile appeared on his face. "I've heard your name in relation to the Sacred Heart Institute affair. Afterward, you donated 10,000 taels of silver. Before I had the chance to thank you in person, you annihilated a Goodbye's werewolf army. And the retreat of the Duke-level demon beast also owes much to your artillery command. Looking at it this way, I truly owe you a great deal. The younger generation is indeed formidable. Find more chapters on my virtual library empire." Liu Yao quickly replied, "I don't dare accept such praise, Minister Zhou. What I did doesn't compare to even a fraction of your accomplishments." "There's no need for modesty, you are indeed a dragon among men," said Minister Zhou with a chuckle as he stroked his beard. "But you're quite bold, too, daring to attack a blood exchange level demon beast while in organ refining, and even exterminating the Heilong gang. The mysterious death of the Izumo ambassador must also be related to you." Liu Yao just smiled without saying anything. What Minister Zhou mentioned was only a small part of what he had done, and it was the least conspicuous part at that. "You are still young, and you have achieved remarkable accomplishments in the martial path and spirit refinement, becoming renowned the world over. What you need to do next is to continue making progress." Minister Zhou picked up the brush and began to write vigorously on a piece of paper. Soon, a piece of paper filled with characters and a line diagram of cultivation practice appeared in his hands. "I present to you the technique, Dragon Subduing Palm, Regret of the Dragon, hoping that you will stay humble and persevering and climb to the pinnacle of the martial path." With these words, he solemnly handed the paper to Liu Yao. The Dragon Subduing Palm was a world-renowned martial art, and Liu Yao received it with both hands, expressing his sincere thanks. "Thank you for your generous gift, Minister Zhou. I will not disappoint your teaching." Regret of the Dragon comes from the Book of Changes, meaning that when a dragon flies too high, disaster will ensue. It implies that those in high positions should guard against arrogance, otherwise, they will fail and regret it later. It also describes how the haughty inevitably attract misfortune. This was Minister Zhou's earnest exhortation, reminding Liu Yao not to become arrogant because of his achievements. One must understand that there are always higher powers and more profound mysteries. Only by approaching everything with humility can one attract fortune, avoid disaster, and achieve further brilliance. Minister Zhou patted his shoulder and said, "In this world, there are not many talented people like you who are willing to serve the common folk. The predecessors who passed down the Dragon Subduing Palm once said, 'The essence of being a hero is to serve the country and the people.' I hope that after you achieve success, you will do good for the people of the world." Liu Yao nodded solemnly. The elder before him did not limit his views to narrow concepts like serving the imperial court, but rather bluntly spoke of serving the people of the world. There are always some heroic figures who transcend the limitations of their time, planning great deeds for the benefit of future generations. Minister Zhou rubbed his temples and said, I am at ease regarding your character, and Yu Yata's judgment could not be wrong. I will soon be setting out for the capital, so I won't keep you any longer today. Even though they won the battle, there were still a host of troublesome matters waiting in the capital, quite a headache to consider. Liu Yao immediately took his leave, and Minister Zhou escorted him outside, talking as they walked. The great power's scramble brought opportunities to our nation, yet good fortune often rides upon disaster. These bandits will surely seek to recover their losses elsewhere. As the two emerged, they happened to run into Zhou Xiaoyi. Holding a foreign newspaper, he said excitedly. Father, this foreigner's newspaper is very interesting. It says that you forced Rakshasa to do something it has never done before. Regurgitate the territory it had already swallowed. Zhou's face turned stern as he said sternly. Causing trouble again. If you could spend even a third of your energy on martial practice, I could die contentment. Look at Liu Yao, younger than you and is already an innate Grand Master. Liu Yao bowed to the chastised young Master Zhou and quickly left. Back at home, several sisters gathered around to ask about the meeting. Liu Yao gave a brief description and took out the dragon subduing palm, dragon's regret given by Zhou. The sisters gathered around and exclaimed in amazement. The dragon subduing palm is a world-famous supreme technique, and dragon's regret is the most powerful move within it, and the key principle. The key principle even contains the cultivation method. This is incredibly precious. The palm technique given by Zhou might have been just one move, but the characters were densely packed, filling the entire page, along with a very complex diagram of the energy circulation pathway. This included the cultivation method that accompanied the dragon subduing palm. All supreme techniques come with their cultivation method, and that of the dragon subduing palm leads straight to the golden body realm. That's why the sisters were so astounded. The value of this piece of paper simply couldn't be measured in silver. Li Pei also said, Zhou's gesture is profound. From now on, we will have the protection of a great Grand Master. Those with evil intentions will have to think twice before targeting us. Although Liu Yao was currently unrivaled in reputation, he also attracted much attention. His wealth, the 3 spiritual sparrowhawks, would arouse envy. Moreover, Yu Yanmiai's unblemished state also made her an object of desire. While their family possessed a dual innate strength, they were not invincible. Zhou's gift of the one-move dragon subduing palm was a clear signal of friendship to the outside world, and an indirect protection for Liu Yao and Yu Yanmiai. While everyone appreciated Zhou's profound grace and favor, Yu Yanmiai arrived, her gaze fixed on the paper in Liu Yao's hand. Liu Yao promptly handed it over to her. Yu Yanmiai studied it eagerly for a long while, her eyes closed in focused spirit, seemingly gaining insight. Meanwhile, Liu Yao and the others began packing for their return journey. Yu Yanmiai would also follow on this return trip. The remaining affairs in the western frontier no longer required swords to be drawn. Moreover, she was very keen on riding a spiritual sparrowhawk. That was also a key reason. Later, the group divided into teams, with Li Pei and her disciple Yu Yanmiai riding Ru Yi, the Liao sisters Ye and Qi, on Ji Xiang, and Liu Yao on Ping'an. Flapping their wings, they stirred up a gale as the spiritual sparrowhawks soared straight into the sky. Having an extra person on their backs hardly affected the spiritual sparrowhawks. The blood exchange mirror had transformed their bodies, taking them beyond the realm of ordinary creatures. The group maneuvered the spiritual sparrowhawks through rolls and turns, with clouds within reach. No one could resist the thrill of soaring through the sky. Yu Yanmiai's face turned red with excitement, barely restraining herself from shouting aloud. Liao Qi chuckled as she hugged her sister's waist from behind, her hands creeping upwards to grab 2 big spheres, earning a scolding from her sister. Departing from the western frontier in the early morning, it took them only half a day to return to Yunzhou, just in time for lunch. With the spiritual sparrowhawks, they could go anywhere in the vast world. Chapter 333. Fear of insufficient firepower. The time had come to August, a week since their return from a successful journey. Enjoy more content from my virtual library empire. Inside Jin Garden, Liu Yao was practicing the dynamic dragon subduing art, giving Liaoya a massage. Stimulated by the innate true qi, it felt as if her entire body were soaking in a hot spring spa. Liaoya was comfortably content, sweating profusely with a faint scent of orchid fragrance wafting from her. Things were different now. The two had become sworn siblings, with no need for pretense. allowing Liu Yao to fully apply his technique. At that moment, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Senior sister, you're really beautiful." Liao Ya's heart felt as sweet as honey, and the scent of orchid fragrance on her body grew stronger. Inspired by this aroma, cell vitality surged, and physical functions increased by at least 5-fold. Moreover, the effect could last 2 or 3 hours, during which cultivation was twice as effective. Interestingly, the orchid fragrance had no effect on Liao Ya herself. Liu Yao wasn't one to only look out for his own benefits, of course, he had to repay his senior sister. Transferring his own innate true qi to her, helping Liao Ya refine her body. Not wanting to delay her junior brother's cultivation, Liao Ya quickly protested, "Enough already, you need to keep it for your own cultivation." Liu Yao laughed and said, "Don't worry, senior sister, this is all thanks to your orchid fragrance. Consider it an exchange of courtesies." With her cheeks flushed, Liao Ya then contentedly accepted the benefit. Filled with affection, the scent of orchid fragrance reached its peak. When they woke, it was already well into the morning. Stepping out, Liu Yao saw Liao Qi pouting in the yard, looking decidedly unhappy and sleep-deprived. "You always complain that I'm noisy, but you're not exactly quiet yourself. People are strange like that." She wasn't envious of Li Pei but rather jealous that her heart's desire was smitten with her sister. Liu Yao went over to hug her, but the girl acted stubborn and pushed him away, pretending to be angry. Fortunately, Liu Yao had something up his sleeve. The space-time bubble still contained a supermarket with many specially chosen beautiful clothes and snacks. A pile of treasures appeared before their eyes in an instant. Liao Qi couldn't stay mad any longer and cheered as she dived in to choose what she liked. Liao Ya also came over to pick her favorites. The two girls were excited, while Liu Yao leaned in with a cheeky smile, encircling one slender waist in each hand. The sisters paid him no mind, focused solely on selecting items to their liking. Liu Yao, caressing their slender waists, said with a mischievous smile, "Both of you are the apple of my eye. It wouldn't be fair to neglect either. How about, from now on we all sleep together, in one big, oof." Both sisters elbowed him at the same time, scolding, "You rascal! How shameless! In your dreams!" Liao Qi pinched Liu Yao a couple of times, her face flushed as she cooed, "If I had known you harbored such indecent thoughts, go dream on." The sisters were well aware of Liu Yao's designs. They enjoyed reading novels, and stories of sisters being courted together were common in illustrated books. In the past, they would spit in disdain at such plots, completely scornful. But they never imagined that fate would play such a joke on them. Now that it was their turn, such an arrangement was absolutely forbidden. Liu Yao laughed off the blows and the scolding, thinking that sooner or later he would get his way under the same roof. "Uncle Master." While the three were joking around, Sui Arya came over with a pile of items. The young girl couldn't help but steal glances at her master, who was unusually intimate with her uncle master, feeling quite dismayed at how times had changed. Then, clearing her throat, she reported with a bunch of invitation cards in hand. "All the major sects and high officials from the imperial court have sent their congratulations for Uncle Master's advancement to the advanced innate realm. I only accepted the invitation cards and returned the gifts." Liu Yao took it and after examining it, he praised with a smile, "You did well." Following that, Arya took out the newspapers, paid her respects to the three masters, and then stepped back. Liao Qi clicked his tongue in admiration, "Your disciple is really well behaved." Liao Ya said with a chuckle, "Sensible, determined, and eager to learn. A truly promising seedling indeed." Liu Yao opened the newspaper, which the young girl had specifically selected for its records of major events. At the forefront was Emperor Yong'an's accession to the throne and his vigorous promotion of the westernization movement. He aimed to popularize the telegraph, electric lights, and running water in all provincial capitals and major towns. The paper's accompanying illustration was of the famous Chang'an Street in Imperial City. The 10-mile-long street was brightly lit at night, shining as if it were day, adding splendor to the capital's prosperity. Liu Yao casually said to the sisters, "Let's also connect Jin Garden to electricity and running water." "Oh, that's easy, just have Li Pei's trusted eunuch handle it." Although Jin Garden was far from the city, now that Liu Yao had money and influence, this was merely a matter of spending a bit more money. Next, Liu Yao saw news about the western frontier in the newspaper. The Rakshasa had been dragged into the quagmire of World War I, their paper tiger nature exposed, with no recourse but to fly into a rage. They had already signed an armistice agreement with the imperial court and completely withdrawn from the western frontier. However, there were some discordant voices. Some believed that Zhou Gong was too reckless, ignoring imperial strategies and starting a war on his own initiative. Liu Yao scoffed at this. In Otherworld, the Rakshasa practiced a unique blood slave system, where vampire overlords monopolized all productive resources like land and forests. The common people had no personal freedom and had to regularly provide their fresh blood as tribute. This backward system meant that when Rakshasa joined World War I, it was like an old man leaning on a cane joining a gang fight. Their domestic economy collapsed in the blink of an eye. Factories closed down, unemployment surged, prices rose, and the currency devalued. It's just uncertain if a world with supernatural powers will undergo a revolution. That's difficult, as golden body level demon beasts are too strong. Don't assume that the Rakshasa Duke was easily scared off. Those demon beasts are extremely formidable, and they can fly. So if one wishes to stage a revolution, one must first possess matching strength. Thinking of Rakshasa, Liu Yao flipped through the pages to catch up on the Western Front's news. The newspaper illustrations had a distinctive era-specific charm. Soldiers clearing trenches with flamethrowers on their backs. Tanks of bizarre designs crossing barbed wire and rolling clouds of green poison gas smoke. Warriors in fearsome knight armor carrying large-caliber artillery directly. And, of course, increasingly slender-designed airplanes in the sky. The well-known battles of Verdun and Somme River were in full swing. Even before the battle had concluded, the cumulative casualties of the three warring sides had already surpassed 1 million. By this time, insightful people both at home and abroad could see. Jihad was going down. The emerging powers couldn't compete with the old master of global colonies. It seems that World War I is about to end, but these robbers have suffered heavy losses, and after the war, they will surely seek to make up for them, further intensifying their exploitations. I am still not strong enough. And firepower is even more insufficient. Chapter 334. So engrossed in the martial path, he has no time for the joy of men and women. Planes, tanks, and cannons just aren't brave enough. You gotta have at least a thermobaric bomb or tactical nuclear warheads to feel secure in your heart. Life is not a game, and enemies won't line up to fight you one by one from weakest to strongest like the Gord brothers saving their grandpa. You've got to have some real self-defense trump cards. Just as Liu Yao was pondering about going back to Yukolun to stir up some trouble, Liaoya came over shyly to remind him. Junior brother, aren't you going to take advantage of the effects of the orchid fragrance to cultivate properly? Liu Yao responded with a playful grin, no worries, once the effect wears off, I'll just come sniff you again. To produce such a fragrance, Liaoya had to endure quite a bit of discomfort herself. Blushing, she punched her junior brother a few times and then pulled him to cultivate together. The focus of everyone currently was on cultivating Dragon Subduing Palm, Regret of the Dragon. The move given by Master Zhou was an overarching cultivation method. In terms of value, it was much higher than Tathagata Divine Palm, Buddha Shakes Mountains and Rivers. After all, no matter how powerful the latter was, it was just one technique, at most offering a glimpse into the mysteries of merging spirit refining with the martial path. Whereas Dragon Subduing Palm, Dragon's Regret came with a cultivation method that led directly to the Golden Body realm, which was incredibly precious. Having obtained this technique, it was as if Liu Yao already possessed 90% of the entire palm technique. It was a clear sign of Master Zhou's high regard and mentorship. At this moment, Liu Yao had already mastered the technique and cultivation method of Dragon Subduing Palm, Dragon's Regret by leveraging his state of spirit refining. The current difficulty lay in his desire to cultivate it alongside Dragon Elephant Prujna skill and Dragon Roar Golden Bell Shield. After all, the body forging effects of these two divine skills were extraordinary and should not be neglected. If I could simultaneously cultivate all three divine skills, my cultivation speed would surely reach an extreme peak, but that's indeed quite difficult. Dragon Subduing Palm is not a brute force technique like the other two. This divine skill harmoniously combines strength and softness. When practicing the cultivation method, it starts from the governor vessel to the hand's lunar lung meridian, passing through 36 aperture points. It's very complex. So much so, that Liu Yao had been struggling for a whole week without success. Even under the influence of orchid fragrance, with a surge in cellular activity and a boost in bodily functions, he still hadn't achieved tri-cultivation. By this time, the two sisters had already practiced the skill twice. They were seen with their left legs slightly bent, right arms bent inwards, and right palms drawing a circle and blasting a wave of qi towards each other through the air. Their palms met with a loud boom. The two sisters exerted 70% of their strength in a palm strike, then exchanged insights and pointed out each other's inadequacies. Watching Liu Yao still pondering, Liao Qi trotted over, rubbing his face and cooingly said, "Don't be too greedy, just take your time to practice." Liu Yao kissed the sweet-scented fingers of his sister and said, "Time waits for no one. The great powers will soon turn their attention back to us. When you're successful, you should help the world. I must do something, and can't let down Master Zhou's expectations for nothing." The sisters gazed unblinkingly at their man, their beautiful eyes shining with pride, liking the great hero persona Liu Yao was projecting at the moment. But the next sentence shattered the atmosphere completely. "So, I'm already under a lot of pressure. Let's sleep together tonight, and we can even save a room. Go to hell. X2. Liu Yao was again showered with playful punches, considering it a massage. Just then, the sound of something cutting through the sky at high speed was heard. Ping'an was bringing back Li Pei and his disciple. The two women didn't wait for the spiritual sparrowhawk to land before leaping down agilely. Yu Yanmei, still flushed, nodded coldly to everyone and swiftly made her way back to the pleasure boat at the dock. After her master left, Li Pei could only say helplessly, she just loves riding the spiritual sparrowhawk, insisting on a daily flight together. The spiritual sparrowhawk, proud by nature, absolutely refused to let outsiders ride it, so Yu Yanmei could only hitch a windy ride with her disciples for fun. Liu Yao chuckled, unconcerned, and continued his cultivation. At that moment, Li Pei's eyes flickered as if she were preoccupied with a thought. Once her lord has left, she quickly pulled the two sisters aside and whispered, "The lord has advanced to the innate realm, and the imperial court will confer the title Grand General of the nation, do you know that?" The sisters nodded in agreement, "Yes, we know. The title is conferred as a mark of favor." Li Pei, with a serious expression, said, "After the conferment, there will be official 3 wives and 4 concubines. Do you want a few more sisters?" The sisters shook their heads vehemently, definitely not wanting that. But as innate martial artists, they are entitled to have 3 legitimate wives. What can be done about that? Li Pei nodded and said, "If you don't want it, naturally I do not wish it either. Since that's the case, I'll immediately send a telegram to the capital city and submit your 2 names for 3 wives, so that the quota for 3 wives will be taken up by us 3. As for concubines..." Li Pei proudly thrust out her full, round chest and declared, "Those who are willing to be concubines, we sisters certainly won't be afraid." According to the rules, the 2 sisters, being close as sworn sisters, would not take up the quota of wives and concubines. Li Pei's move was to secure their places, leaving no room for others. Liao Ye, with a complicated look, stared at this royal lady and said speechlessly, "Sister Li, I still remember you saying to me, you wouldn't mind a man having 3 wives and 4 concubines." Liao Qi chimed in, You've said that to me too." Li Pei did indeed say that, but that was then, this is now. She smoothed her hair, narrowed her eyes, and said with a crooked smile, "Did I say that? I don't remember." Liao Ye. Liao Qi. Anyway, we must unite and drive away all those enchanting and cheap vixens. Just as Li Pei was rallying her sisters against outsiders, the sound of a flute suddenly came from the void. "Stay updated through my virtual library empire." The tone was round and gentle, tranquil and elegant, conveying emotions through the music. It was the tune of Phoenix seeking the Phoenix. The Comer spirit refining stage must be at the fetal breath realm. Upon hearing this, Liu Yao immediately came out and looked in the direction of the Su River. After a while, a group of women came elegantly in the dance step of the rainbow garments. They were all draped in yellow gauze, holding oil paper umbrellas decorated with lotus flowers, their movements graceful as if dancing. Then, a woman holding a long flute, wearing an ethereal Kikshangrukan dress, stepped on an oil paper umbrella and floated towards them gracefully. This remarkable feat of walking on air was indeed the ability of energy control of the innate realm. The woman approached Liu Yao with a coquettish smile and gave a deep curtsy. "This humble one is the holy maiden of the Golden Lotus sect. Li Yueshan, long admiring the great name of young master Liu, I am most fortunate to meet you today." This Li Yueshan, with a face and figure that were absolutely stunning and cultivation that was not ordinary, obviously came to do something that went without saying with such a fox-like charm. Li Pei and the others were on high alert as Liao Ye discreetly reminded, the Golden Lotus sect is one of the top sects in the north, and its sect master is at the Golden Body realm. Liu Yao flared his nostrils slightly, and asked indifferently, I wonder what brings the holy maiden here. Li Yueshan smiled enchantingly, I have come especially to seek an alliance through marriage with young Master Liu. As long as we are joined in matrimony, my Holy Lotus sect will open up all resources for your use. Moreover, these 15 attendants of mine are also at your disposal. The attendants holding umbrellas also curtsied gracefully to Liu Yao. Among them, beauties like autumn chrysanthemums were all enchanting, each one absolutely stunning. Li Pei and the other two exchanged glances, their hearts rising to their throats. All three sisters knew full well that their man was quite the lecher, always tormenting them with all sorts of antics. Seeing so many stunning beauties now, they worried he might agree on the spot. But Liu Yao flared his nostrils again, hiding the disgust in his eyes, and said indifferently, I appreciate the holy maiden's kind offer. I am immersed in the martial path and have no interest in the joys of men and women, farewell. Chapter 335. Sisters Unite and Cooperate. Liu Yao's words were met with a sigh of relief from the three girls, who looked at their man with a sense of pride and comfort. Young Master Liu, please hold. Li Yueshan glanced at the three girls and cursed inwardly, obsessed with the martial path. Then what's with those three over there, who are being pampered until they are almost dripping with tenderness? She took a deep breath and said with a serious tone, Young Master, please consider carefully, I have come with sincerity. Our Holy Lotus sect has a massive amount of gold treasured away. Liu Yao couldn't care less, responding perfunctorily, I am indeed engrossed in the martial path, and I have no time for the pleasures of men and women. Li Yueshan's expression turned icy as she interrupted, Young Master Liu, is there something about me that dissatisfies you? She was puzzled. With beauty, wealth, and resources all within easy reach, why did this man seem so reluctant? In reality, her looks were not inferior, comparable to Liu Yao's three girls, not to mention she was accompanied by 15 stunning maids. But to Liu Yao, taste and feeling were very important when it came to women. His own three beauties had pure spirits, making their company extremely pleasing and carefree, void of any need for wariness. Moreover, their beautiful souls also gave off a unique fragrance. Li Yueshan, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. Liu Yao could only sense malice and selfishness in her, and even a hint of a senior's aura. Li Yueshan was still awaiting a response. Liu Yao, being a man, had to display at least some grace, so he asked indirectly, May I dare to ask the holy maiden's age? As soon as she heard this, Li Yueshan's expression faltered, and she stammered, Innate martial artists have a lifespan of 160 years, and only when their lifespan is nearly exhausted do they age rapidly. Age is actually not something to be concerned about. Through divine sense perception, Liu Yao sensed that the delicate beauty before him could indeed be his grandmother. It was at this moment that a cool voice interjected, She is 20 years older than me. She is 60 this year. Yu Yanmei had appeared on the scene at some point, and with one sentence, she exposed the ages of both of them. Bullshit. I am only 57 this year. Li Yueshan instantly flew into a rage, her bloodshot eyes looking ready to tear someone apart. Yu Yanmei was not at all intimidated, cradling her sword in her arms as she said coldly. Li Yueshan, after all these years you still haven't made any progress. You're supposed to be the holy maiden of the Holy Lotus sect, yet you act like the holy maiden of the Joyful sect. Still better than someone your age who hasn't yet tasted meat. Read latest chapters on my virtual library empire. In a moment, Li Yueshan had regained her elegance. With such vulgar language, Yu Yanmei's expression grew even colder, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword. Li Yueshan would definitely not start a fight here. If a battle broke out, there would be no chance at all. She lifted her head proudly and said to Liu Yao, Young Master Liu, you should consider again. An alliance between us would be greatly beneficial. Having said that, she led the group of beautiful maids away with an elegant dancing step. Once these people had left, several girls surrounded Liu Yao, praising him vigorously. Liao Ye, junior brother, well done. These shameless women should be decisively rejected. Liao Qi, Liu Yao, I misunderstood you. With so many women throwing themselves at you, I feared you would readily accept. Liu Yao smiled modestly, it's only right, it's only right. Even Yu Yanmei showed approval, saying, Liu Zizi, your willpower is commendable. Li Pizan, delighted, said, Indeed, Li Yueshan was once known as the #1 beauty in the martial world, and yet you rejected her without hesitation. The #1 beauty in the martial world. Such a gossip-worthy topic immediately piqued the interest of the young girls. To earn that title is no easy feat. You must be a female innate grandmaster under 30 years of age, and on top of that, you must be exceptionally beautiful and never married. The current #1 beauty in the martial world is the holy maiden of the joyful sect. At this point, Li Pei suddenly laughed and said, "Let me tell you, my master once held that title too." Back then. Before she could finish, Yu Yanmei swiftly struck her disciple on the head with lightning speed, so fast that no one saw it clearly. Before Li Pei had the chance to cry out in pain, Yu had already vanished without a trace. With the interlude over, Liu Yao also returned to his room to contemplate his cultivation. Once the outsider left, the three girls gathered again to whisper among themselves. Li Pei was the first to speak. "The situation is more serious than I anticipated. Divine land is vast, and there are so many beautiful innate females. Whatever shall we do?" Liaoya frowned and said, "Not only did the holy maiden of the Golden Lotus sect come herself, but she also brought 15 gorgeous maidservants with her, such a grand display." Liao Qi chimed in, "According to the scriptures, once she joins, she will surely engage in palace intrigue and drive us out of our home." The three girls were somewhat worried. After all, this was just the beginning, there were assuredly more to come. In the past, they could handle the admirers Liu Yao attracted on their own. But now, those arriving were formidable figures, truly difficult to deal with. Do we have to rely solely on Liu Yao's willpower? I don't think it's reliable, he's too lascivious. Having lived under the same roof for a long time and knowing each other's character flaws all too well, not to mention Liu Yao insisting on sleeping together daily. While in the midst of their worries, Li Pei suddenly said, "Actually, it's simple. With men, you just need to make him willing but unable." Liaoya asked, "What do you mean, sister?" "Exactly that, drain him so much he can't even walk, make his legs weak at the sight of a woman." "Ah, but he's an innate grandmaster and has achieved the spirit refinement of divine fetal breathing, he possesses countless techniques to torment us, how could we possibly handle him?" Liao Qi interjected, "The gap is too wide, we can't do it. And now he's even choosier." Liaoya and Li Pei's faces turned red, clearly very familiar with this tactic. Facing an innate grandmaster's robust physique, a single person indeed won't suffice. Li Pei said seriously, "But what if we unite? With concerted efforts, can't we handle him, 3-on-1? "What? Sister Li, what nonsense are you talking about?" Both sisters were shocked and embarrassed, unable to believe what they were hearing. Li Pei said, unfazed, "What's the matter? We've taken herbal baths together and massaged each other, we've seen it all, so what's there to be shy about?" The sisters exclaimed together, "How can that be the same? Sister Li, how can you come up with such an idea, it's shameless. Would you rather have a dozen or 20 sisters and then spend years barely seeing your beloved? That's what happened to my mother, she hardly saw my father all year and died in gloomy solitude." The sisters fell silent at her words. Li Pei was not exaggerating. Liaoya and Liao Qi looked at each other, then quickly turned away, their faces blushing as they said in unison, "No, we can't do it." After speaking, they ran away in embarrassed fury. Only Li Pei was left, sighing and troubled. Chapter 336, Targeting the Iowa-class battleship. Just when Liu Yao seemed to be showered with unexpected good fortune, far in the north, within the boundaries of Longgang County in Xingzhou, Fu Fengsheng stood on the mountainside, encircled tightly by 15 martial artists, with no chance of escape. Yet he seemed to be oblivious to the attackers surrounding him, gazing into the distance at a monastery that seemed to be styled like a medieval castle. At that moment, a martial artist dressed like a wealthy merchant stepped forward, full of pride and said, "Grandmaster Fu, it's been a long time. We, brothers, have been searching for you for a month, and today we have finally caught you." The man had an exceptionally thick neck and bore a gigantic horse-slaying saber on his shoulder. "Ba Dao Sex Lu Hu." Fu Fengsheng turned his head to look at him, indifferently said, "As a local sect of Xingzhou, your Ba Dao sect should be aware of the strangeness of this monastery. Why would you be complicit with them? Seizing farmlands is one thing, but small children have been going missing nearby. How can you also be involved in such heinous acts?" Lu Hu raised his horse-slaying saber with a wang sound, "Cut the crap, we'll settle this with our martial skills today. He then shouted towards his fellow sect members, this man is a major criminal wanted by the imperial court, repeatedly guilty of murder. There's no need to speak of chivalry with such a person, let's take him down together. The members of the Ba sect echoed the call with shouts and yells, greed written all over their faces as they stared at Fu Fangsheng. This man had somehow gone mad, demolishing churches of the Western religion recently, with a bounty of over 3,000 taels of silver on his head. If they killed him, it would be an enormous fortune. Lu Hu didn't waste more words, merging with his saber he attacked, the horse-slaying saber cutting through the air at high speed, blurring around its edges. But in the next second, Fu Fangsheng transformed into a black shadow that passed by Lu Hu first despite starting later. Lu Hu felt a chill in his chest, followed by a sudden lack of strength in his whole body as he fell to his knees. Looking down, he saw a bloody hole in his chest. As it turned out, Fu Fangsheng had forcefully removed his beating heart. Your heart isn't black, is it? Give it back to me. Lu Hu slowly stood up, reaching toward his own heart. Being in the blood exchange realm, he could live for a while even without a heart. But Fu Fangsheng suddenly clenched his hand, and the heart burst. Lu Hu fell to the ground in despair. The members of the Ba sect who witnessed this scene retreated in horror, utterly dismayed. Innate realm, you are an innate grandmaster. Fu Fangsheng picked up Lu Hu's horse-slaying saber and said, I just broke through and have been stabilizing my realm for a month. The crowd immediately knelt and kowtowed, there's mercy, Grandmaster Fu, spare us. It has nothing to do with us. It was all Lu Hu's doing. But before they could finish, they were engulfed by a sky full of saber light, and a terrible whistling sound filled the air. After a few brief screams, the ground was littered with countless severed corpses, and the blood slowly spread across the soil. Fu Fangsheng put his fingers to his lips and let out a loud whistle. Soon after, people started emerging from the woods behind him. More and more people gathered, from all walks of life, with the lowest realm being only sinew strengthening, and their attire varied wildly. Seeing the members of the Ba sect dead, they appeared overjoyed, chatting excitedly. Grandmaster Fu, we, the local martial artists of Xingzhou, all look up to you. Please eliminate this den of evil. This damned monastery has seized our ancestral farmland. Today, I will fight them to the end. Right. Let's fight them. Damn Western demon beasts, trying to take over the public orphanage we are building. Amidst the rising fury of the crowd, Fu Fangsheng raised his saber towards the monastery on the hill and shouted, Gentlemen, follow me to slaughter the demons. Upon saying this, he was the first to charge towards the monastery. The crowd roared in unison, following closely behind. Soon, the sounds of gunfire were continuous, and the cries of battle shook the heavens. Before long, the majestic monastery was engulfed in a raging inferno. Numerous reporters, with their cameras large and small, hustled to capture the scene, ensuring that the story made the headlines immediately. Liu Ya received the news on the second day. Xingzhou Church destroyed, a total of 35 priests, clergy, and nuns killed. Fury against foreign demons. Righteous people demolish the den of evil, slaying 35 demon beasts, rescuing over 40 innocent children. These were two different takes on the same news by two newspapers. Fu Fangsheng had advanced to the innate realm and was making bigger moves. In recent days, he had already destroyed 3 churches, each time with overwhelming support. These Western religion churches conspired with scoundrels to commit atrocities, seizing land, dominating property, and violating women. The missionaries not only turned a blind eye to such misdeeds among their flock but even actively sheltered and encouraged them to provoke the authorities and create disturbances, aiming to undermine the imperial court's authority and establish the church's prestige. All these actions had long aroused extreme disgust and public outrage. Furthermore, many churches were like the Sacred Heart Institute, engaged in abominable practices such as trafficking children. The public resentment against Westerners and the Western religion had reached its limit. The actions of Fu Fangsheng were like wildfire spreading through the land, stirring a tide of kill the foreigners, eliminate the demons throughout the entire region of Jiangnan. Liu Yao put down the newspaper and stretched his body vigorously. The continuous intense training was slightly irritating, as he still hadn't achieved tri-cultivation. The 3 girls were frolicking by the lake, occasionally flushing with embarrassment and stealing glances at him, seemingly up to something. Might as well make good use of this idle time. Since the energy of the Star Key is full, I'll head back to Blue Star to collect some treasures, and change my mood in the process, he thought. After telling the girls, Liu Yao left with Ping'an, leaving the other 2 spiritual sparrowhawks at home in case of need. Blue Star, high above the Ryukyu Islands, Liu Yao rode atop Ping'an and revealed himself. Ping'an spread his wings, smoothly gliding on the rising air currents. Last time I was piloting a plane heading east, now I am right over the Pacific Ocean, he thought. The endless blue sea below was always a mood lifter. Liu Yao quickly determined his direction with the help of the sun and was about to instruct the spiritual sparrowhawk to turn around when, looking at the vast ocean beneath him, he suddenly thought. Now I have planes, tanks, artillery. I have assets for land and air, but I don't have a ship. Liu Yao suddenly realized that he had always overlooked the importance of ships. The future was uncertain, and there could very well be a need for ships. It may not be necessary now, but it's essential to have one just in case, so Liu Yao immediately thought about getting a battleship for himself. It's impossible to buy one, even if I could afford it, a battleship costs billions. It's too expensive. So, I need to find sponsorship from the Star Alliance country. But here comes the problem. While I could steal a plane, there is no way to sneak out a slow ship from a military port, only a space-time bubble could do the job. But I don't want to reveal my big secret, so stay updated with novelbin.com. At that moment, Liu Yao suddenly turned his gaze towards the Hawaiian Islands. The Star Alliance country's Missouri battleship was stationed there, a sea fortress with a displacement of over 40,000 tons. And since it was a decommissioned battleship, it wasn't closely watched, yet it was maintained very well. Liu Yao patted Ping'an's rump, full-speed flight. With a screech, Ping'an flapped his wings powerfully, causing a torrent of turbulent airflow. Chapter 337. Battleships were once the preferred choice of navies around the world, but unfortunately, they haven't adapted well to modern warfare and have gradually retired from the historical stage. However, heavy armor and huge cannons will forever be the greatest romance of men. A few hours later, Liu Yao arrived at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii on the Ping'an, where the Missouri battleship had been mothballed after its retirement. It was Liu Yao's first visit and he had thought that there some difficulties might arise, such as the security measures for a retired naval ship and the like. But upon arrival, he found there were no such security measures at all. This steel fortress, as tall as a 20-story building, 270 meters in length, and displacing over 40,000 tons, could now be visited and photographed for just $35. Liu Yao put on sunglasses and bought a ticket to go up for a visit. He took a good tour around, feeling as if he were inspecting his own territory, and overall, he was quite satisfied. The Missouri was equipped with 3 triple-gun turrets, each larger than a house, with barrels so wide that Liu Yao could easily crawl inside, and the cannonballs weighed an impressive 1.2 tons each. If they were all manned by gunshot experts above the spirit embryo breathing realm, a volley could perhaps instantly take down someone in the golden body realm. Moreover, the ship was built during World War II and was first retired in 1955, but to everyone's surprise, it was called back into service for the Gulf War 30 years later. Therefore, after its second retirement in 1992, it has been maintained in a state of readiness for battle, ready for the old soldier to be called up once again. Not only were ammunition, propellant charges, and fuel supplies all in place, but the boilers and engines were also well maintained, ready to be pulled out and set to action at any moment. After a full round, dusk had unknowingly fallen and the staff began to guide the tourists off the ship. What came next was the waiting for the deep of the night. Your next chapter is on novelbin.com. In the meantime, Liu Yao took out his brick-like PDA to check the news online. He saw that his popularity on the internet remained undiminished, but whereas he was very popular in the country, in the past few days there had been a growing chorus of criticism. A quick glance was enough to know that much of it was rhythm-driven by the water army who were paid to post. Currently, Liu Yao's supporters were engaged in a daily battle of words with this group, resulting in countless bans. This Liu Yao is a terrorist. I don't understand why people still praise him. He has gone to wreak havoc in the Star Alliance country. So what if he's a terrorist? This person's moral standards are extremely low, disappearing when trouble arises and causing the Star Alliance country to take its anger out on us. It's a joke. Even without him, the Star Alliance country would definitely target us. Currently, the Foreign Affairs Bureau is frantically searching the world for Liu Yao. The reward has been increased by another 100 million, but they haven't even seen a hair of him, and they are in a state of frustrated rage. Being robbed of airplanes from military bases twice is an unimaginable disgrace for the world's #1 power. Upon reading this, Liu Yao laughed disdainfully, thinking the best was yet to come. Just then, his phone suddenly rang. Someone was calling, and it was Alexander of all people. This person knew the rules very well and would never initiate contact under normal circumstances. What's happening this time? Alexander, what's up? Liu, here's the thing, my backer. General Sergei Krivov wants to meet you. He is the Vice Secretary General of the Yakolun Security Committee and the first Deputy Commander of the Special Operations Forces. He has a big deal to discuss with you. Liu Yao replied calmly, okay, when? The sooner the better, his health is concerning. I've still got something to do on my end. I'll come over for a detailed talk tomorrow. After hanging up the phone, Liu Yao looked out at the pitch-black dock and silently slipped into the sea. An innate grandmaster can hold his breath for 1 hour, and even breathe underwater. Liu Yao distinctly felt the acupoints of his governor and conception vessels absorbing oxygen from the sea to supply his body. Feeling like a fish was very interesting, and Liu Yao swam faster than the fish themselves. As long as he maintained a reasonable posture, the force of 18,000 jin provided him with surging power, allowing him to shoot through the water like a torpedo. At this moment, the pitch-black environment where he couldn't see his own hands had no effect on Liu Yao. He quietly approached right below the Missouri battleship. The space-time bubble had a drawback, it can only absorb objects that one touches with their hands. Moreover, Liu Yao wasn't completely sure that he could fit such a colossus into it. However, one must try to know for sure. He reached out to touch the bottom of the ship and activated the space-time bubble. The sea transformed into a swamp-like substance, slowly engulfing the giant battleship moored above it. About 1 minute later, the steel fortress on the sea disappeared without a trace. The waves rolled as if nothing had ever been there. Liu Yao dived back into the sea and swam away like a torpedo, while the energy of the Star Key plummeted by 100%. Having secured a hefty sponsorship, Liu Yao was in a good mood. He rode on Ping An's back, shooting straight into the skies, headed for Yakolun as agreed. This time, he had intended to obtain some powerful trump cards, but surprisingly, the other party took the initiative to offer them. General Sergei Krivov must be the big shot who's always protected Alexander's arms trade. I hope for a pleasant transaction, he thought. With nothing to do on the way, Liu Yao didn't waste time and started cultivating on the back of the spiritual sparrowhawk. Thousands of years ago, the ancestors in Huaxia had discovered that the human body has many special acupoints, which they called aperture points. In Western studies, these were seen merely as points where nerve endings and blood vessels densely intersect. But the people of Huaxia discovered that these organs of the human body had many wondrous functions. Stimulation by external forces could strengthen the body and treat diseases, while using inner breath and true qi for stimulation could bestow an incredible robust physique. Moving mountains and overturning seas was nothing difficult. The most miraculous part was the presence of natural pathways that perfectly connected all acupoints, known as meridians. There were 12 on the left, 12 on the right, and the central governor and conception vessels, altogether making 26 meridians. These perfectly enveloped the entire body, connected all acupoints, and naturally cycled with the changes of the 12-hour periods. This was as if it were designed for cultivation. It made one marvel at the wonder of creation, so incredible that the idea of God's creating humans has persisted through the ages. The main task in the innate realm was to use true qi to open the circulatory meridians, refining all the acupoints to form an energy cycle encompassing the entire body. This is known as meridian opening and aperture training. However, the body's original meridians were too narrow to be used. This required martial artists to constantly stimulate and refine them with innate true qi, strengthening and clearing them, much like building a subway with true qi inside the body. Liu Yao always wanted to achieve tri-cultivation, but the meridian root of dragon subduing palm was the opposite of the other two divine skills. If the roots were similar, Liu Yao could have managed with fine control in the spirit refining state, but being completely opposite posed quite a challenge. To reach the limit of tri-cultivation, it seems I'll have to wait until I can refine my spirit and leave my body. Luckily, cultivating the two divine skills together is not slow, he pondered. After researching the matter of cultivation, he unknowingly entered the Yakolun territory. Chapter 338, Generous Remuneration. Having undergone the blood exchange, Ping An Jin's body continued to grow. It was now 3.1 meters long, with a wingspan exceeding 6 meters. It didn't consider Liu Yao's 100 kilograms body weight as anything significant, carrying its owner soaring through the sky. Its flight was graceful to the utmost, and its speed was extremely fast, at least 600 km per hour. Moreover, birds possess a unique global positioning system, able to navigate by relying on the planet's magnetic fields. Yakolun territory had been visited many times, and Pinganjin had long since memorized its location. After Liu Yao issued the command, he had nothing to worry about, he just needed to sit back and relax on its back, waiting to reach the destination. They were already within Yakolun territory, and Pinganjin began to gradually decrease its altitude in preparation for landing. Liu Yao instructed, "Go and play on your own, but don't go too far." Pinganjin could fully understand its owner's words, crying humanely in response, it even nodded its head to show understanding. When they were still 1 kilometer from the ground, Liu Yao leaped directly off the back of the spiritual sparrowhawk, plummeting to the earth like a weight. He wasn't wearing a wingsuit flight suit, nor did he use imperial chi to cushion the fall, he simply crashed directly onto the ground. With a boom, a radial crater 1 meter deep appeared on the ground. Liu Yao got up, moved his limbs a bit, and ran towards the direction of the tank factory as if nothing had happened. Upon arriving at Alexander's luxurious and warm office, there were 2 strangers in black suits standing at the door. They each had a wireless earpiece stuffed in their ear, their muscles bulged under the suits, making them look taut, and their faces were filled with indifference. As Liu Yao was about to enter, they stopped him, gesturing that they needed to search him. At that moment, a gruff voice with a heavy accent in Star Alliance language came from inside the room. "Ha, there's no need for such superfluous actions, this is the 007 who has stolen planes from the Star Alliance military base twice, hurry up and let our guest in." The speaker was a bald, round-faced old man. He was nearly 70, with a ring of beard around his jaw, looking rather ordinary and lacking in presence. Yet, he was a high-ranking military official from the era of the Iron Alliance. Alexander quickly stood up, introducing with respect, "Lu, this is General Sergei Krivov, whom I've spoken to you about on the phone. I wish you a pleasant chat." As soon as he finished speaking, he hurried out the door, making sure to close it carefully behind him. Only the 2 of them remained in the room. Sergei nodded in greeting and pointed to a chair opposite him, "Please sit, young hero. Thank you for coming." Once seated, Liu Yao asked calmly, "General, what can I do for you? And what can you offer me in return?" Sergei didn't rush to answer but instead knocked back 2 shots of strong liquor, his cloudy eyes gaining a hint of brightness. "Young man, what do you think of my country?" Liu Yao replied casually, "A declining nation." "Thank you for your euphemism," Sergei said with a heavy self-mocking tone, "my country has become a land of decay." With that, he finished a 3rd shot of liquor in one gulp. Liu Yao frowned, noticing a hint of a death wish on the old man's face. Clearly, his physical condition didn't allow for drinking. Sure enough, Sergei suddenly began to cough violently halfway through his drink, filling the glass with blood. Sergei took out a handkerchief to wipe his mouth, pretending not to care, he said. "Sorry, I lost my composure, an old habit from Gulag prison. Let's get to the point." Although the strong alcohol damaged his body, it also propelled him quickly into a state ready for serious discussion. Sergei took out a tablet and tapped it a few times, bringing up a series of photos. The pictures displayed a very technologically advanced circular structure, with countless people in biohazard protective suits bustling about. Scrolling further revealed many critically ill patients lying in hospitals. Sergei slowly explained. Star Alliance country has established numerous biological laboratories around the globe, secretly engaged in the development of biochemical weapons, a fact known to all. Unfortunately, my country also has such places, not just one, and there have been multiple virus leak accidents, claiming the lives of countless people due to strange infectious diseases every year. At this, Sergei's face twisted into a ferocious snarl, as if ready to devour someone. But these are not accidental incidents at all. It's the bastards of Star Alliance country who deliberately release various viruses, treating our citizens like lab rats and monkeys. Liu Yao looked at the various photos in silence, the dead depicted in bizarre and numerous forms, many of them children. Anger made Sergei breathe heavily as he said. "I don't have much time left, and I just want to do something before I die. Young man, your 2 infiltrations of Star Alliance military base have proven your capability. So, I want to cooperate with you." Liu Yao responded calmly, "To destroy the biological laboratory? No, it's much more troublesome than that." Sergei's eyes shone brightly as he said coldly. I want you to infiltrate the heavily guarded laboratory and obtain decisive evidence of Star Alliance countries' human experiments. I want to make it public. Let the whole world see the hideous faces of these bastards. The method could be described as cutting the weeds and digging up the roots, more effective than simply destroying the laboratory, but anyone could guess the difficulty would be extremely high. Liu Yao said in a relaxed tone, "That's not difficult, leave it to me." Ha! I like your confidence, you even agreed without asking for a reward, cough cough. Sergei suddenly broke into a violent cough, his handkerchief covered with blood he'd coughed up. Liu Yao shrugged and said, "I'd do this sort of thing even without a reward, at the very least it would cause trouble for Star Alliance country, wouldn't it?" What an interesting young man. It took a while for Sergei to catch his breath from the coughing, then he continued slowly. "You've bought quite a lot of arms from Alexander, but if you can complete my mission, I can offer you an even more explosive toy. A nuclear warhead with a 150 kiloton yield." "Oh? A nuke?" Liu Yao became interested, as this was his ultimate goal upon returning to Blue Star. With this thing, he could attempt to confront those at the Golden Body Realm. Sergei said solemnly. "When we were dismantling our nuclear arsenal years ago, my country secretly kept a batch of nukes as a trump card for future rise and revival. Now they're useless, but you're different. With it, you will make history." Explore more stories with novelbin.com. Liu Yao extended his hand for a handshake and said, "Then it's settled, you can start preparing the nuclear warhead." Sergei grasped the hand firmly, reminding, "Don't underestimate the challenge, the laboratory is no simple matter. I've sent people to infiltrate it before, but not only did they fail, they were also infected with a strange virus. The symptoms are similar to a cold, but it causes permanent loss of taste and permanent lung damage." Liu Yao smiled, "I like a challenge." For some reason, looking at the other's confident demeanor, Sergei himself felt an endless surge of confidence. "No matter what, I must do something for my country before I die." Chapter 339, Capture. Kharkov is Yakolin's second largest city and also the hometown of General Sergei. Ever since the Star Alliance country's laboratory appeared here 5 years ago, mysterious contagious diseases such as anthrax and the plague have frequently erupted. Recently, a strange cold broke out in the barracks, infecting over 200 soldiers, and as of now, dozens have died. No wonder Sergei was so furious, as this was his hometown and the place of his rise, yet it had become someone's testing ground. Biological laboratories are fraught with dangers, any viral leak could lead to catastrophic losses. Therefore, the Star Alliance country despicably built it abroad, so even if an accident occurred, it would be someone else's disaster, occasionally allowing for an accidental leak to gather data. At this moment, Liu Yao was riding the spiritual Sparrowhawk, overlooking the Star Alliance country's 4th-level biological laboratory from high above. The laboratory occupied an area of 100 hectares, with an electrified metal protective fence on the outermost perimeter, and a technologically infused semicircular building at the very center. One had to go through strict layers of security checks to enter, with all the security personnel armed to the teeth, carrying loaded guns, and wearing heavy bulletproof vests. The intelligence provided by Sergei indicated that the laboratory's security was tight, with only one access corridor and various stringent disinfection procedures, making infiltration nearly impossible. Liu Yao was on a tight schedule, and as they were all old friends, he didn't bother with any flashy tricks. Heading straight for the main entrance. At the security checkpoint of the main entrance, 4 fully armed security personnel saw Liu Yao approaching and immediately aimed their guns and shouted, "This is a facility of the Star Alliance country, please leave immediately, or we will use force." Before they could finish speaking, in the blink of an eye, Liu Yao was beside them, gifting each of them a blow to the head. After 4 muffled sounds, 4 people with bleeding from 7 orifices collapsed to the ground. Casually picking up 2 HK-416 automatic rifles, Liu Yao continued forward, through the main hall on the first floor of the building, and arrived at the changing area. There were rows of metal lockers here where staff would change into their work clothes. By now, shrill alarm sounds had begun, countless footsteps approached, along with the sounds of loading weapons. But this was only the beginning, the time ahead was precious. In about 10 minutes, Yakolun's SWAT team would arrive for backup. Meanwhile, the lab's manager could completely destroy the data on the central computer at any moment. Therefore, he had to race against time. Feeling a large group of enemies about to appear, Liu Yao exerted force in his legs, ran up walls with a wall kick, and arrived above his enemies. The quick reacting ones had already looked up in shock, simultaneously raising their guns. But by then, Liu Yao had already pulled the triggers, the muzzles flashed fire as bullets rained down from above. In a flash, a mist of blood and screaming erupted, and Liu Yao didn't even look back as he rushed forward, also grabbing a living prisoner. Intelligence showed. Just ahead was the disinfection zone, blocked by a metal door that required fingerprint verification. The fully armed strong man in his grasp struggled, but to Liu Yao, he was as weak as a little rabbit. Dragging the man to the metal door, there indeed was a fingerprint lock. He had the hostage help to open it and then casually discarded him afterward. The man hit the wall hard, letting out a dull groan before falling silent, dead or alive, it was up to his luck. Liu Yao continued directly into the disinfection zone, the laboratory's level 2 area. Ultraviolet lamps were everywhere, bathing the area in purple light, designed to shatter the genetic material of viruses. There were no people here, and Liu Yao quickly passed through, entering through a resistant door into the level 3 area. The negative pressure zone. Negative air pressure prevented substances from high-risk areas from leaking out. Beyond this point was the laboratory's core area. There were people here. A middle-aged Caucasian woman with glasses was in the midst of changing into protective clothing. She suddenly saw Liu Yao with 2 rifles in hand and let out a piercing scream. Quiet! The mind force infused his voice as Liu Yao activated spring breeze and drunkenness, making his tone incredibly magnetic and sexy. What's your name? The middle-aged woman instantly calmed down and responded blankly, my name is Jenny. Dear Jenny, please open the door to the core area for me. A struggle appeared on the middle-aged woman's face. To enter the core area, you must wear a positive pressure suit. The core area is where biochemical research is conducted, and one must wear an positive pressure protective suit that isolates the wearer from the outside environment, otherwise, there's no telling what kind of strange viruses one might catch. However, this was of no concern to Liu Yao, who could swallow all the viruses in the entire laboratory and it wouldn't matter. Mere things can no longer harm an innate grandmaster, any microorganism that enters their body turns into nourishment. Liu Yao intensified his investment of mind force as he hypnotically commanded, open. The middle-aged woman blankly walked to the door leading to the core area. This metal door displayed a biohazard warning sign and required both iris verification and a password to open. After she operated the controls, the door opened with the sound of air being drawn in, revealing a narrow passageway. This was the airlock chamber of the Level 4 biolab, with decontamination nozzles all over the ceiling. With an inside man, there was no need for a violent demolition, so Liu Yao went straight in. As soon as he entered, armed guards with live ammunition arrived, but hesitated to advance at the entrance. The airlock chamber of a Level 4 biolab, dubbed the boundary of hell, is where the normal world meets the high-risk world. The employees working here knew something about the research contents, to a greater or lesser extent, and didn't want to have any contact with the things inside. Having passed through the airlock chamber, Liu Yao finally arrived at the core area of the lab. The doors here had automatic interlocking devices, preventing adjacent doors from being open at the same time to avoid leakage. Along the way, the walls were plastered with warning signs for high-risk areas and biological hazards, along with yellow spiral tubes hanging from the ceiling. These tubes were for venting the positive pressure suits of the research staff. Of course, Liu Yao had no need for them, heading straight for the central computer. By this time, exactly 3 minutes had passed since his intrusion. At this point, the lab supervisor was likely preparing to delete the data. After passing numerous rooms with password-protected cold storage cabinets, Liu Yao finally found the target of his mission. The central computer room. All of the lab's research data was stored inside. At that moment, 2 men were operating a computer inside. These were the lab's primary and deputy supervisors, who would enter the codes to delete all the data together. Liu Yao aimed his gun at the 2 men through the observation window. The deputy supervisor immediately raised his hands in surrender while the supervisor sneered, pointing at the refrigerated cabinets behind him. These contain the most dangerous bacteria and viruses in the world. You madmen have no protective measures, so go ahead and shoot if you want to die. Having said this, he pressed the enter key on the keyboard, which was the confirm key for data deletion. Liu Yao, of course, was not going to indulge him. His guns fired immediately, the bullets whistling from the chambers and easily penetrating the glass window. The gun in his left hand knocked away the palm of the man's hand on the keyboard, and the gun in his right hand blew his head off, splattering the deputy supervisor's face with gore. Liu Yao shouted, Open the door. Facing a man ruthless enough to shoot guns in a virus lab, the deputy supervisor hurriedly typed in the code, trembling, to open the door. Liu Yao strutted in and took away the entire mainframe of the central computer. This device was physically disconnected from the network, and its construction was different from a regular computer. Best to take it away in its entirety. Stay tuned with novelbin.com. Chapter 340. The soul is boiling. The mainframe of the central computer looked like a bedside table, weighing 30 kilograms, which Liu Yao carried in one hand as if it were weightless. At this moment, only the deputy director of the laboratory was left, shivering uncontrollably. In Liu Yao's eyes, everyone in this entire laboratory deserved to die. Along the way, he saw that the laboratory had complete protective and disinfection measures in place, with an extremely high level of security, making an accidental incident utterly impossible. It could only have been a deliberate leak, experimenting on live humans. You've been cooperative, so I'll leave your fate to judgment by destiny. Liu Yao crushed the protective mask of the other's suit in one hand, fully exposing his entire face to the air. The deputy director was a white man in his 50s, who now screamed in panic, "No! God, no!" The core area of the Level 4 biological laboratory had no sharp edges, precisely to avoid even the slightest scrape on their protective suits. And the rule that two people must enter at the same time was also to check each other's protective suits. Because to be fully exposed to the air held tremendous risks. The deputy director, of course, knew crystal clear what the laboratory was researching and understood the consequences of infection, and now he howled in utter despair. Liu Yao ignored him and turned to leave with the cabinet in tow. On his way back, the disinfectant sprinkler heads above faithfully carried out their duty, automatically spraying disinfectant to clean Liu Yao's entire body. After passing through the corridor filled with ultraviolet lights and just exiting the disinfection area, he saw countless armed guards wearing gas masks aiming their guns at him. These people didn't dare to start a fight in the dangerous areas of the laboratory, so they chose to intercept at the entrance. "You are surrounded. Drop your weapons and lie down immediately." Liu Yao snorted with scorn, entered the spirit refining state, and everything in the world slowed down to 0.3 times its speed. He suddenly leaped into the air, spinning around, while firing his gun single-handedly, the bullets whistling out. The armed guards did not foolishly block the doorway but had each found cover. Continue reading stories on my virtual library empire. But the next second, a bullet from Liu Yao's gun penetrated the forehead of each man, spraying a handful of blood flowers from the back of their heads. Those with quick reactions managed to pull their triggers before dying, hitting Liu Yao. These bullets were either deflected or flattened against his body before shattering. When he landed, the sound of bodies hitting the ground echoed around him, and silence filled the air. With no resistance left in the laboratory, Liu Yao casually left with the cabinet in hand. 2 hours later, he arrived at a manor on the outskirts of Kiev. Even though Sergei had learned the details through special channels, he was still utterly shocked. "I can't believe it, you did it so quickly." Less than 5 hours had passed since they parted, and Kharkov was a full 500 kilometers from Kiev. A heavily guarded laboratory had been breached so quickly that the enemy didn't even have time to destroy the data. Once the laboratory director realized something was wrong, it would only take a minute to delete all the data and physically destroy the central computer. But according to the intelligence he had received, the laboratory's armed security was completely wiped out, and this person had even taken the entire central computer system back in one piece. An overwhelming victory, and such a rapid round trip could only be done by plane. Sergei was certain. Liu Yao must have an entire team serving him, a gang of transnational desperados. Next, several rugged subordinates carried the cabinet inside for professional hackers to crack its encryption system. Things proceeded in an orderly fashion, and Sergei took a deep breath, his face glowing red. "Once I get the evidence inside, I'm going to expose the whole thing and let the whole world see the ugly face of the Star Alliance country. Shut down all their labs within our borders." Cough cough. He coughed for a while, then sighed, "That's all I can do now, God bless." Liu Yao reached out and patted Sergei on the shoulder, passing a strand of inner breath, "Your soul is boiling, you can definitely do it." He witnessed again that unique sight. The spirits will affecting the body. Liu Yao could clearly sense that Sergei's lungs were full of shadows, which had spread throughout his body. Under normal circumstances, the old man should be lying in the ICU by now. At the moment, he was supported solely by a tenacious spirit, making a last-ditch effort. Carefully sensing the other's divine soul state, it felt very similar to when Priest Johi left his body in spirit refining state. The whole soul was boiling. Who would have thought that on Blue Star, I could find such an excellent reference for spirit refinement? Liu Yao was quietly marveling at the strange turns of life. At that moment, Sergi suddenly said seriously. Liu, you're moving too fast. Nuclear bombs are not potatoes, no one can steal them out in such a short period of time. Please wait patiently for 3 days, I swear on my father's name, I will bring the nuclear bomb to you. Having confirmed with the spirit refining state that the other was telling the truth, and understanding the sensitivity of nuclear bombs, Liu Yao graciously agreed. At this moment, a dozen military computers were connected to the cabinet, and the monitors were rapidly flashing code to break the encryption system. An encryption system that can only passively defend won't last long, victory was already within sight. At that time, a brown-haired beauty walked over gracefully and said, General Sergi, we expect to break the encryption in 36 hours, you can prepare for the press conference. When she finished speaking, she turned to Liu Yao, exclaimed, Oh my god, Mr. Liu is involved in this. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Anna Sarapova from the Moscow Federal Security Bureau. Sergi did not trust the people within Ukraine country, so he reached out to the neighboring country, Moscow, to jointly deal with the Star Alliance country. Liu Yao immediately understood, this beautiful woman named Anna was an agent from Moscow, thus he politely extended his hand to shake hers. But Anna took the chance to scratch the palm of his hand, her smile seductive. Female agents from this country always had this style, adept at using their bodies to extract information and achieve their goals. Liu Yao, meanwhile, was a hot figure on Blue Star, having attacked the Star Alliance country's military bases more than anyone else. Although the Star Alliance country kept everything about Liu Yao under strict secrecy, other countries learned through their own channels about Liu Yao's physical capabilities, far beyond those of ordinary people. After researching Liu Yao's life experience, almost every expert in the field of human studies agreed. He must have undergone some form of physical mutation during cancer treatment. Thus, in addition to the Star Alliance country, several other nations were looking for traces of Liu Yao, with their own schemes in mind. Unfortunately, they didn't know that the extent of Liu Yao's mutation was a bit too great. By then, Sergi had already left to prepare for what was coming. Seeing her chance, Anna quickly clung to him, slowly reaching out to caress Liu Yao's chest, admiring, such a strong body. Mr. Liu, would you like to experience the ultimate pleasure? Unfortunately, Liu Yao was unfazed by stunning beauties. Sorry, I still have some matters to attend to. His own 3 martial artist sisters had extraordinarily enchanting figures and were full of vibrant health. Only women of extreme beauty could now pique his interest. Though Anna was a beautiful foreign woman, foreign beauties were nothing new for him, there was nothing particularly fascinating about them. Anna, bold as ever, smiled alluringly and cut to the chase. Mr. Liu, we are allies now, don't be so cold. Give me 5 minutes of your time, I've undergone special training, you'll be the happiest man in the world. Her words piqued Liu Yao's curiosity, the happiest man in the world? I've long heard of the swallow and the red sparrow. Are they really that impressive? Anna smiled seductively, life is short, why not give it a try?